His destiny is to love someone who denies the connection. Elliot, a young werewolf with a complicated destiny, finds himself bonded to an alpha Damien who is afraid of love and its consequences. Can they overcome the pain of the past and the fear of the future to realize that true strength is acceptance of each other? Find out in a story about the struggle for love and the healing of the heart. Elliot, do you ever wonder where your mate is? My best friend, Ash, asked. It was a Wednesday night. We were sitting on his bed, watching the show called Teen Wolf for a few laughs. It was fun watching shows that humans created of the werewolves. Some were good while others were crap. All the time, I wonder what kind of person they are, their scent, and how it would be to meet them. I have always dreamed of my mate, to have a person that you are destined to be with, a person who can love you when you can't love yourself. I explained in great thought. But I mostly thought about the mating process, where you must first accept your mate, then sleep with them, and finally mark them. It's a special moment because once the mates have accepted each other, the bond is unbreakable. Damn, that's deep, but you have already come of age for a wolf. You are 18, yet you haven't met your mate. Aren't you afraid that your inner wolf will disappear? My best friend questioned, not glossing over his words. I turned 18 2 weeks ago, but I haven't found my mate so far, even if I lived in a town that was a secret society for werewolves. When a wolf comes of age, the moment they turn 18, they can find their mate, but both of the mates have to be over the age of 18. Usually, you can find our mate either by scent, which other wolves can't smell, only you, or by eye contact, which is like a spark of electricity that rushes through your body. I forced a smile on my face, which felt heavy. I'm terrified of not finding my mate and losing my wolf, but I know that everyone finds their mate in the end. I wanted to laugh at myself because 2 weeks passed since my birthday. It was already autumn, my senior year of high school. All I have been doing these past weeks is to stare into people's eyes, searching for my mate, but there was no spark nor a scent. Though, if you don't find your mate within a certain time frame, your inner wolf will go into a deep slumber until the day you find your mate. That's what happened to my stepbrother, Damien Reed. He turned 18 4 years ago, but he hasn't found his mate yet. It's a secret in the family that his wolf has gone to sleep. He can't transform into a wolf, which threatens his position as the future alpha. Keep that positive thinking because you're going to need it since people in the pack gossip about you, Ash says, patting me on the shoulder. Who are gossiping about me? I asked out of curiosity. My best friend is also a wolf. He turned 18 9 months ago, but he had not found his mate and was not concerned about the fact. You know what the elderly in the pack say? Oh, such a cute Omega hasn't found his mate yet. What a tragedy. My best friend mimicked an elderly woman from the pack. They can gossip how much they want about me. I don't care. The only thing I care about is to find my mate, who's probably an alpha, since Omegas and alphas usually tend to be mates. I yawned. I glanced at the clock, and it was already past 10 o'clock, which meant that I needed to head home. I could stay longer since my stepfather and my mother are on a vacation, but I wanted to sleep in my cozy, large bed. Hopefully your mate has deep pockets. They could drive us around and buy us food. Ash says with a cheeky grin on his face, "Is that why you want me to find a mate? So that they can become our personal sugar daddy?" I laughed, standing up from the bed and putting on my hoodie. It's going to Bayer Sugar Daddy. I won't be able to give them sugar, but I can dance and clean. He winks while I roll my eyes. Whatever. I chuckle, standing up from the bed. I wave goodbye to my best friend, heading out of his room, even saying farewell to his parents who are in the living room. I make my way outside, taking my bicycle and heading home. I could transform into my wolf and run home, but my clothes always get ripped off. It takes about 15 minutes by bike as I enter a gated community where the alpha of the pack, my stepfather, lives, along with a few pack members like the beta. I get off my bike once I'm in the driveway of the 2-story modern gray house. That's massive and has large windows. But I halt in my steps when I catch the eye of my stepbrother's black sports car, a Lamborghini which he had bought for himself. I internally groaned because we don't have the best relationship. We don't fight or bully each other, but we never talk. We always avoid each other like the plague. If my stepbrother is here, it means that he's here to babysit me for an entire month. He's going to babysit me for the rest of the month since today is October 1st. I hadn't seen him for over 2 weeks since my birthday party because he attended college, majoring in business as he's going to take over the family business and the pack from his father. I placed the bicycle against the house, making my way inside by quietly opening the door to the home. I stepped into the hallway, but the house was quiet. I tiptoed into the living room since there were a few sounds coming from there. I peeked into the spacious and modern living room where everything was either white or gray. There were 2 people on the couch. A guy was sitting on the couch with a girl on top of him. Damien sat on the couch. His dark pants and boxers were to his ankles because there was a naked girl on top of him. "Oh fuck, Damien," the girl moaned, moving her hips against his thick dick. Damien was holding her hips in a harsh grip as the sound of skins slapping echoed in the living room along with their moans. Naturally, I would ignore them, sneak past the couple, but this time I almost fell on the floor since there was a heavy and masculine scent coming from Damien. Damien is covered in the heavy earthly scent of sandalwood. It was strong and intoxicating. "Mate," my inner wolf says in my head, taking me by surprise. My eyes were glued to Damien, who was my mate, but he was on the couch with a naked girl on top of him. I have no idea when I had begun to cry, but when I saw a few teardrops land on the floor, I knew that my heart was breaking in two. My stepbrother was my mate. It was forbidden since we were family by law. But he was also a man whore, sleeping around with girls left and right. He didn't believe in mates. He hated the idea of them, unlike me, who had always dreamt of having a mate, but now those dreams are ruined. Mate, 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 mate. My wolf continues on to plead in my mind. My wolf is hurt, but he also wants his mate. I can't stand to watch them anymore, turning away from them and making my way out of the house, wishing that I didn't have a mate anymore. What the hell was the moon goddess thinking? My stepbrother is my mate, an alpha. He's hot, cruel, and a total player, jumping between girls in college because he's afraid of having a mate. He thinks having a mate is useless, something that is only a burden for an alpha like him. Though, his father, who's currently my stepfather, has always said to him that he would regret sleeping around since that would break his mate's heart. His father was not wrong. My heart is slowly breaking as I hear my stepbrother brining a girl home and fucking her in his bedroom upstairs. I glance at the white ceiling, since it's slightly creaking because my stepbrother is fucking a girl from the pack. Damien, fuck me harder. The girl moaned, and the ceiling began to creak more violently. Mia, wrap your legs around me. My stepbrother, who was my mate, groaned in utter pleasure. Like this. That's right, good girl. I swallowed down the lump in my throat. I couldn't stand listening to the man who was supposed to be my mate, fucking somebody else. It's like breaking a mate's violation. It's like cheating on your destined partner. I had always dreamed of my mate because I wanted somebody to love me on those days when it was hard to love myself. I thought that when I found my mate, it would be a special moment, but it was not. After I found my mate with another girl, I had run away and slept over at my best friend's place before returning home tonight, sneaking through the window. Though I wondered if my stepbrother knew that we were mates. He was 22 and I had only turned 18. Yesterday, I turned 18, but nobody knew my real birthday since my mother had adopted me. My biological parents had left me when I was a baby in the cold winter and later died in an accident. Serves them right. My adoptive mother had always celebrated my birthday at the end of September, when my birthday was actually on the 1st October. I didn't tell her because I didn't know myself, until I saw Damien and my inner wolf started crying out the word mate. My wolf had never cried that way in my mind. I had seen my stepbrother 2 weeks ago during my birthday party, but my wolf was silent since we didn't know yet. You only can find your mate once both of you have turned 18. That explains why I didn't find my mate when I celebrated my 18th birthday 2 weeks ago. I thought I was a lost cause, a useless omega who didn't have a mate, but I was wrong. I had a mate, and it was the worst-case scenario. Out of all the people in my life, why did my stepbrother have to be my mate? Thankfully, our parents weren't mates. They had just dated for a bit and gotten married 4 years ago, but still, it was weird that my stepbrother was my mate. I could admit that I had always had a bit of a crush on him. I always admired him from afar, but he had never looked my way. Maybe that was already a sign that we were mates because sometimes whenever I looked at him, I couldn't tear my gaze off him. But my stepbrother, Damian Reed, has always tended to avoid me. Sometimes he pretended like I didn't even exist. He has always been mad at his father for marrying another woman after his mother had died. He held a deep grudge against his father. Oh, fuck. The girl moaned. The walls were thin as I could hear them. I hid myself under the bed covers, trying to block the sexual noises out. Why did our parents have to go on a vacation for an entire month now? Why couldn't our parents have waited a little bit? I'm now stuck with my stepbrother, since he has been ordered to take care of me for an entire month. Originally, he has his own place near his college, and he rarely comes home, twice a year at most, but now I'm stuck with him for a month. I'm stuck with him for an entire month, right after I found out that he's my mate. We are supposed to mark each other, be together for the rest of our lives. How would that even work for us? My stepbrother, Damien, ignores me like I'm a dead man, and he goes sleeping around with countless young women. How can this turn into a happy ending? Elliot, I hear somebody call out my name. Elliot, I wake up because Damien was shouting my name. Shit, I had fallen asleep. Wake up, you can't miss school. He raised his voice, but he wasn't standing outside my door. Instead, he was in the living room. It was my senior year in high school, a very important time in my life. I opened my eyes, yawning because it was a Friday morning before the wonderful weekend would arrive. Though I didn't want to face Damien, not right now. I know that if our eyes met, he would find out, and if I got too close to him, he would smell my scent. Alphas are extremely possessive of their mates. They can even keep them locked up. Nah, now I'm just being dramatic, right? Damien would never lock me up. Instead, he would reject me. And that is my greatest fear. I'm terrified of being rejected by the person who's my destined partner. My biological parents had given me up for adoption before dying in an accident, and I don't want to be rejected by my mate. I don't think I would be able to survive if I got rejected by Damian Reed. Elliot, wake up. You have 15 minutes to get ready. Damien warns. I can hear him through the thin walls of the house. I drag myself out of bed, heading for the bathroom, quickly showering and fixing myself. I put on a gray knitted sweater along with black pants. I took a quick look in the mirror, and my amber eyes were slightly swollen since I had cried into my pillow before I had fallen asleep. I ran a hand through my short honey blonde hair. It was still a little bit wet, but it would dry soon enough, though I couldn't stop but admire the few freckles across my cheeks. I took one last glance at myself before I slung the dark bag over my shoulder. I opened the window and climbed outside into the backyard. My bedroom was on the first floor while Damien's was on the second. That's why each time he brought someone home, I would hear him. Damien had seen me on the backyard, and I could hear his deep voice from behind. Elliot, I don't want any shit from my dad, so it's on you that you don't eat breakfast. I showed him a thumbs up before I made my way past the community gates. I headed into the forest trail which would lead me to my high school. The town that I lived in was a wealthy secret society, where most of the population were werewolves. There were a few humans, but the world still didn't know about our existence, and it would remain that way since the werewolves have lived in peace by hiding their existence for centuries. The town was nestled between two large mountains and had a population of 8,000. Only 3 of them were humans, and the rest were werewolves. This entire town was a large pack that goes by the name of Moonlight Pack, since these werewolves dedicate a lot of their time to pray to the moon goddess that has created us all. The Moonlight Pack has existed for decades and is a large pack that's well known among the werewolf society. The pack's current alpha is Damien's father, but now that the man is on a vacation, Damien has taken over. I was on my way to lunch. The hallways were gathered with students who were in fact werewolves. I had texted my best friend that we would meet in the lunch hall, but the universe had other plans for me. I passed by the janitor's closet, but somebody opened the door, grabbing me by the shoulders and dragging me inside the janitor closet. I dropped my phone on the floor because the people in the closet draped a black plastic bag over my head, which made it difficult to breathe. I couldn't see anything. It was hard to breathe, but I could faintly make out the sound of voices. One of them was Sophia. I could remember her voice even in my nightmares. She was inside the closet with guys who pressed me down on the cold floor. I struggled, but they pushed my chest harder into the floor. I could feel one guy pressing me down while the other was holding onto my legs. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Sophia, we will get in serious trouble if Alpha finds out it's his son. One of the guys was talking to the witch. Who cares? Elliot isn't part of the Alpha's family, they are not blood-related. Sophia argued with them, and we will just scare him a little bit. She laughs like a maniac before she stomps on my left leg, her sharp high heel breaking my knee. I let out a painful cry. Tears were gathered in my eyes because I wanted the pain to stop, but she did not stop pounding onto my left leg. I thought I would lose my leg at that moment because I heard bones breaking. Stop, please, it hurts. I sobbed through the sharp pain that was coming from my left leg. Have you learned your lesson yet? Sophia doesn't stop to laugh. It's vile and disgusting. I don't say anything because I'm in so much pain that I can't say anything but cry. I don't even know how many minutes has passed since it feels like I had been here for an eternity. Hey, we should stop. There's so much blood coming from his leg. One of the guys says, but Sophia seems to disagree. But for some reason she does stop. She orders the guys to release me. The two guys make their way out first, leaving me alone with her. I sense her kneeling down, which makes it the perfect opportunity to wrap my hands around her neck and strangle her. I feel the adrenaline rush through my body, fighting for survival as I take off the plastic bag with one hand while strangling her with the other, pushing her on the floor. You fucking bitch. I chuckle through my pain while her face grows more and more flushed. I will kill you now. I smiled. My grip on her neck tightened since I wanted to put her through the same pain that she put me through. But I suddenly felt two people pushing me away from her. The two guys had come back and saved her. Sophia coughed and vomited since she was close to death. I tried to stand up, but I couldn't. My left leg was fucked. Blood was soaked through my dark pants. It would be hard to heal. Wolves can usually heal by themselves, but Sophia had worn silver high heels, which is poison to us. The two guys helped her up, and I knew them since they were on the football team. One of them carried her in a bridal style, but the other carried a black bucket and poured the contents on me before closing the door and leaving me in the janitor closet. The guy had poured blood all over me. There was blood all over the floor. My clothes were soaked with blood, pig's blood. I didn't know what to do until I heard the school bell ring, which meant that lunch was over, an hour had passed. I barely managed to stand up from the floor, heading out of the janitor closet, and I was met by the janitor who took one look at me and looked the other way. Why does nobody want to help me? Why do they all look the other way? I couldn't go to the principal because she was Sophia's mother. I bit into my lower lip, wiping off the blood from my face before I began to limp out of school with the help of the walls. My leg was aching. I couldn't even feel my left leg anymore. I made my way out of school, covered in blood and with a broken leg, but all I thought about was how I'm going to kill Sophia Nash. I will ruin her fucking life, mark my words. You poor kid who did this to you. The pack doctor, who was a man in his mid-40s, was the only person that was concerned about me. I had washed away all the blood. I had gotten a new set of clothes, and my left leg was wrapped in a bandage. I would need to walk with crutches for a week or two, since wolves heal faster than humans. Nobody. I smiled, but the pack doctor's face grew even more concerned. I had gone to the pack doctor, who had his own hospital in town for wolves. I will need to call your mother. You don't need to worry. I'm fine. You don't need to call anyone because my mother will not come back for me. I mumbled, staring into my bandaged leg, but I limped my way to the crutches. Can we act like I was never here in the first place? The pack doctor ran a hand through his stubble out of despair. Fine, but if this happens again, I will call your mother and Richard, your stepfather. Thank you, I acknowledged with a slight nod. Don't forget to take the painkillers, the man mentioned before I walked out of his office. I made my way out of the hospital. It was a good idea that I didn't tell the pack doctor what had happened, or else he wouldn't believe me since everyone likes Sophia Nash. I headed home by car, which the pack doctor had called for me. The person drove me home and dropped me off in the driveway before driving away. I entered through the front door since I don't see Damien's car in the driveway, nor in the garage. I closed the door behind me, taking off one shoe before I head inside the kitchen, making myself a small meal. Just as I'm finished pouring the yogurt into the bowl, I hear the engine of a sports car in the driveway, which means that Damien is back. Why is he back early? He always has afternoon classes, so I should have been free the entire evening since it's only 2 o'clock. I limped outside the kitchen and into my bedroom, but I didn't close the door since I wanted to see if he had company or not. If he had, I would sleep over at Ash's place, but if he didn't, I would stay at home and rest. I heard the front door open along with Damien's voice as he seemed to be talking with a person over the phone. Dad, Elliot is fine, he has just gotten back from school. Damien speaks to his father about me, but not for long. Damien puts his father on speaker, and by the sound of it, I think he's in the kitchen, putting groceries in the fridge. What will he eat for dinner? I have given the maids a month off since I'm on vacation with his mother. Damien's father says, his voice echoing on the first floor. He's 18, he can handle himself. Damien answered, but his father didn't sound pleased. I'm joking, I have already bought groceries to make dinner for the both of us. I will make chicken carbonara. Damien tells his father, who sighs in relief. Will he cook food for me? I could almost melt to that thought since Damien Reed is an amazing cook. He knows his way around the kitchen. Hopefully, he leaves me leftovers. The father and son grew silent over the phone. It was the heavy and awkward silence. Son, are you able to shift into your wolf form again? Damien's father asked out of worry. No, I haven't been able to shift into my wolf form, but I heard my wolf's voice. He's back. Damien answered. He sounded hopeful. You heard your wolf's voice. That's very good, but you haven't transformed into a wolf for the past 4 years ever since you turned 18 and haven't found your mate. You're slowly losing your wolf since it can't survive without a mate. Damien's father explained, sounding sad over the phone. Dad, you know that I'm right. You always say that you hate mates and think that it's a burden, but without a mate you're nothing. And you know that you have to stop and sleep with other people, or else you might never find your mate. Stop. I don't want to hear anymore. Damien pleaded, cutting his dad off. Damien had always put up this cruel and cold front of not wanting a mate, but now it sounds like he needs a mate to get his wolf back. The good news is that I have caught on a scent. Since last night, this sweet scent of vanilla has been lingering in the house. It drives me insane, and I only want to find the person with the sweet scent. Damien slightly changed the topic about this sweet scent. Wait, did he say a vanilla scent? When I smelled my sleeves, I was covered in the scent of vanilla. Unlike Damien, who's covered in the heavy earthly scent of sandalwood, it's masculine and intense. If I stay close to Damien, I would go into heat since that's what happens when mates meet for the first time they want to mate. That's good, son. Damien's father sounded happy over the phone. They talked some more when they suddenly said their farewells and hung up. Before I headed back to my room, I heard Damien say, "Is it Elliot's scent?" No, it can't be. Elliot can never be my mate. Damien, this is the night when Elliot heard Damien with a girl in Chapter 1. It was dark outside as I looked at the iPad in my hand. My father had sent me documents to look through. It was about the family business, the multi-billion company that my dad owned, the Reed Corporations, which had been in the Reed family for decades. Do you want to repeat? Mia moaned, moving her hips, and I had almost forgotten about her. She was on top of me. Both of her hands were on my chest while my dick was still inside her. I had fucked her for hours, but she still wanted more. I looked away from the documents, staring at her body. Her breasts were swollen, and her face was flushed from all the fucking. Her disheveled dark hair reached her shoulders. Her plump lips were slightly parted as she moved herself on my dick. You won't be able to handle it. I answered, looking back at the iPad in my hand. I was hard. I could fuck her for another hour, but I needed to check these documents. Please. I feel like I'm dying. Mia moaned, clenching her pussy around my dick, teasing me to the point that I threw the iPad on the other side of the bed. I pulled myself out of her before I changed our positions. She was on her fours as I shoved my dick back inside her and fucked her until she passed out. She fell asleep with a satisfied smirk on her face. I pulled myself out of her again, throwing the condom in the bin, since I always wore protection whenever I slept around. I also had monthly checkups for any sexual diseases since I was never irresponsible. I stood up from the bed and put on some sweatpants before heading downstairs to the kitchen. I needed to drink. But a sudden scent in the kitchen that stopped me. The scent was spread on the first floor, covering every corner of the house. It was the sweetest scent of vanilla. I placed a hand on the wall since I could finally feel my wolf after 4 years of no contact because I hadn't found my mate. Instead, I fooled around with girls. If my wolf is coming back, does this mean that my mate is near? That could be the only explanation. In reality, I hated the idea of mates because I had seen what my mother's death had done to my dad since they were mates. They were high school sweethearts. He had turned to drugs after she died in an accident. It was a sudden death which ended up ruining the relationship between me and Dad. The grief took over him. He couldn't eat, sleep, or take care of himself for a few years. He tried to take his own life before he turned to drugs where he would hallucinate my mother. I didn't want to have a mate because if something happened to me, I didn't want to put my mate through grief that could kill them. I had seen what the loss of a mate had done to my dad, and he hadn't healed, even if 10 years had passed since her death. The only reason why Dad even got married to Elliot's mother was because the woman resembled my own mother, my dad's mate. That's why I hated the marriage between Elliot's mother and my dad, since he was living in a delusion, marrying another woman because she resembled his mate. I rushed to the kitchen sink, splashed some water on my face before taking a glass and drinking the water, burying my thoughts deep in my mind. There's no way that I have a mate. I have gone without a mate for 4 whole years. But the sweet scent inside the house made me almost lose my mind. It was addicting, like every part of my being wanted to find them. There's only 3 people inside the house, me, Elliot, and Mia. I made my way upstairs, into my master bedroom where Mia was sprawled naked on my bed, and I was surprised that she was still here since I don't like people sleeping over. I woke her up, staring into her sleepy eyes, but there was nothing since you must feel a spark of electricity rush through. There was also no scent of vanilla on her, and whenever I touched her skin, I didn't feel anything when you are supposed to feel a spark of the bond. She wasn't my mate, and I was thankful for that. Elliot. No fucking way that guy could be my mate. We're stepbrothers who have a strained relationship. We barely talk to one another. We always leave each other alone. We don't stick to each other's business. If he was my mate, I would have known since both of us are already 18. He had turned 18 2 weeks ago. I was even there when he blew the candles from the cake, but my wolf didn't react and there was no sweet scent coming from him. Get out. I ordered the naked girl on my bed. She rolled her eyes before she got up from the bed, putting her clothes on, and was making her way out of my bedroom. Call me anytime. I'm always here for my future alpha. She blows a kiss before heading out of the bedroom and the house. I stare at my bed, which is covered in sweat and cum. The bedroom reeked of sex. For the first time, I want to get rid of my bed, the covers, the pillows, the smell of sex in the room. I wanted to get rid of everything that didn't smell like my mate. I only want the vanilla scent. I want my mate. I had never felt this before. I had slept with many girls, losing my virginity at the age of 16, but there was never a moment of regret until now. In the werewolf society, there's a saying that you must stay loyal and wait for your mate, but many werewolves these days ignore the saying, and in the end we must reap what we sow. We want our mate. It was the first words spoken from my wolf because I hadn't heard my wolf for over 4 years. We want our mate. We want our mate. We want our mate. My head was spinning as I made my way to the bathroom. I could barely walk because all I wanted was my mate. I fell on my knees in the bathroom. I felt sick as I wanted to rip my skin since the stench of sex from another girl lingered on my skin. I ended up puking my guts out on the floor until I mustered up the strength to crawl to the shower, turning on the cold water that washed away the scent of another person that was not my mate. I sat in the shower as cold water was pouring on my body. I sat for hours in the shower, washing every inch of my skin, but it felt like my skin was set on fire. It was burning. I wanted to mark my mate. I wanted to mate with them. I wanted my mate. Elliot, what did she do to you? Ash asked. He was laying on my bed, eating a bag of popcorn. She broke my leg and poured blood all over me. I answered. The mere thought made me shiver, but I strangled her since she had fucked up my leg. I add, taking some popcorn from the bag. Ash smiled for a split second. Serves her right. She has bullied you for the past 3 years. My best friend returned looking at the TV since we were watching another episode of Teen Wolf because he has a major crush on Styles. I want to thank my best friend, Damian Reed. I glanced outside the window because of the noise in the backyard. It was a Saturday night, as Damian had brought friends over to the house. It was dark inside my bedroom when I looked through my window into the busy backyard, where there's a small gathering of people who are chatting and drinking on the patio. Damian had gathered his closest friends and pack members like the future Beta, the future pack doctor, among a few other pack members. They are having a small party since Damien invited them over because our parents are gone. Cheers. The future beta and Damien's best friend roars with booze in his hand. You are going to get drunk first, Simon. A girl commented to the future beta, who's called Simon. I glanced at my stepbrother, who's having a great time with his friends, and my gaze linger for too long on him. Damien's dark hair is slightly tousled, curling just above his ears in a way that looks effortless styled. His olive skin seemed to glow in the soft candlelight since there were candles on the table. His dark eyes were deep, rich, and mysterious, filled with an intensity that made it hard to look away. He's dressed in a black fitted shirt that hugs his broad shoulders tightly, highlighting his athletic build. The dark fabric stretches slightly across his chest whenever he shifts in the chair, a subtle reminder of his strength. Damien is clearly well-trained because he trained alongside the pack warriors ever since he was 10 years old. I can't help but also notice the tattoo on his forearm of something written in Italian, his mother's native language. Mate, my inner wolf says inside my head. It's like he wants to curl up in Damien's lap and stay there forever. I can also see that one of the girls hasn't stopped eyeing him like he's some candy, and I have no idea if he has slept with her. Suddenly, I feel the spark of electricity, a reminder that Damien and I are mates. Out of nowhere, Damien glanced at my window like he also felt the spark rushing through our bodies. I immediately dodged my head. I turned on the side of my bed so that he wouldn't see me. Fuck, he almost caught me. Are you okay, dude? My best friend questions. He had his focus on the TV, but my weird behavior alerts him. Ash glances out the window where Damien is having fun with his friends, but I grab him by the shoulder since I don't want Damien to see him or me. What's up with you? Ash pulls away from me, but he doesn't look out the window again. I take a deep breath in and tell my best friend the truth. I found my mate. Elliot Ash had started snoring an hour ago. He was deep in sleep. I glanced at my bandaged left leg, which hurt like hell since the painkillers didn't help. I bit into my lower lip until I drew blood because my leg was hurting. The pain was unbearable. I'm tossing and turning in bed, sweat trickling down my forehead, but the pain didn't go away. I was afraid I would overdose on painkillers since I had taken a lot of them, or at least how many the pack doctor had recommended. I felt another sharp pain rush through my left leg because of the silver which Sophia had put on her high heels. I had taken the antidote from the silver. If I hadn't taken the antidote, my wound wouldn't be able to heal, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. I can't heal us. My inner wolf speaks to me, his voice gentle. I know. I tell him in my mind. It's because of the silver poison, it heals slowly. We can go to our mate. The bond of mates can take the pain away and heal us. My wolf explained. If I get rejected by our mate, our alpha, in this state, I will die. I say, and that makes my wolf grow quiet. After that, my wolf didn't say anything. My words must have hurt him. I laid in bed, staring at the white ceiling, wondering if Damien would hook up with another girl again. The gathering was still ongoing, even if it was past midnight. I couldn't listen to the group of friends laughing or to Damien's deep voice, which made my heart flutter and ache. I closed my eyes, trying to fall asleep, but my stomach rumbled since I was hungry. I haven't eaten anything. I stood up from the floor, taking one crutch and sneaking my way outside my bedroom and into the empty kitchen, heading for the fridge. Illy? I suddenly felt someone put a hand on my shoulder, causing me to almost lose my balance as another sharp pain rushed through my left leg. I turned to look at Simon, the future beta who was getting up in my personal space, which I hated. You're such a pretty omega with your blonde hair and golden eyes. You must even smell nice for your mate. You even have beautiful slender hands and a good body, too bad that you are a bit too tall. He mumbles, staring into my eyes. I was 5'10". I was too tall for an omega, since they are usually below 5'6". I laughed in his face, hiding my true emotions. Too bad that you can't compare to the future alpha, Damien Reed, because you are way too weak, Simon. You're always going after omegas to feed your fragile ego. I push away his hand from my shoulder, taking out the lunch box from the fridge, putting the food on a plate and heating the leftovers in the microwave. You are a little bitch, Elliot. It's no wonder Damien doesn't like you. He tolerates you because of his dad, but he really wishes that he didn't have a stepbrother like you. He spat spiteful words. I tried to pretend like it didn't hurt, when in reality my wolf wanted to transform and attack the future beta of the Moonlight Pack. Does Damien know you are getting bullied in school? It's your last year and I have heard from Mia that our sister, Sophia, is bullying you. Aren't you just a disgrace to the pack because you can't stand up for yourself? He tried to get to me to hurt me. Maybe it's good I can't stand up for myself, or else you would be the first person I would report to the Alpha for harassment. I warned him. I took out my food from the microwave before limping back into my room and locking the door behind me. I put the plate on my desk, sitting down and eating while my best friend was asleep, snoring very loudly. Yet I only thought about Simon and Sophia, who were out to get me. Would the bullying be worse before I have a chance to ruin Sophia? Or can I find something to hold against her? Damien, don't you want to head up to your room? Ava whispered in my ear. She had just walked up and taken a seat beside me. She placed a hand on my chest, slowly rubbing my chest up and down, which meant that she wanted to fuck. Afterward, we can go and eat dinner. She suggested, wanting something more out of our friends with benefits. No, and go home already. I ordered, standing up from my seat since I couldn't stand other girls touching me anymore. Ava looked defeated, but I didn't care. We weren't in a relationship. We used to be fuck buddies, that's all. I always established boundaries with the girls I slept with, that I'm not interested in a relationship and I won't change my mind. Sex for me was a way to release stress or pent-up tension in my body. It was fun and quick without any attachments, but the girls I slept with thought that we could end up being something more. Was I a douchey bag? Yes, I could be rude and mean to girls, but only to those that didn't respect my boundaries that I had clearly set with them. I didn't play with girls' emotions because that would be cruel. But I was only cruel to those who tried to step over my boundaries and tried to be my girlfriend. We can only fuck. We don't need to go on a dinner. That was stupid of me to say. Ava tries to laugh it off, but I wasn't in the mood for games. It was only me and her left on the patio, since our other friends had already gone home. Leave. Now. I ordered again, knowing that we wouldn't be friends anymore after this day. Ava scoffed, knowing what my words meant before she stormed off and went home. I cleaned up the patio before heading inside the house. I was going to take a shower, but my phone suddenly began to ring and it was my dad. What is it? I answered the phone. The pack doctor called me. My dad says, his voice filled with concern. And he told me that Elliot came to his office covered in pig's blood. He got silver poison in his left leg and his leg was broken. My dad explained. He was worried since he cares for each pack member. Are you serious? I was surprised since I hadn't seen Elliot. I hadn't even gone near his bedroom because we always avoid each other. He was also a troublemaker. From what I heard, he had brought drugs to school in his first year of high school and almost got expelled. Yes, I'm serious. Elliot's mom doesn't know because I don't want to worry her since she cares deeply about him. That's why I'm asking you about his condition. Is he in a lot of pain? Silver poison is the most painful thing for us. My dad was asking. You have seen him, right? He didn't sound pleased when he figured out I had not seen Elliot. I wake him up for school and I make him meals. He's 18, he should take better care of himself. I know that 18 was not exactly an adult, but I grew up taking care of myself since my dad was never available. I never expected people to take care of me. Fuck's sake, Damien. I know he's 18, an adult, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't check in on him. You could at least go to his room and see the condition of his leg. He was not happy at all. Elliot, it was early in the morning when my phone began to ring on my nightstand. The song, Genesis by Grimes, played since that was my favorite song. My eyes were closed and I was half asleep when I picked up the phone without checking who's calling, but I could guess that it was my mother. Hey, honey, I just wanted to check in on you, she says, and I hear the sound of ocean waves in the background. She had traveled to Italy because Damien's father has a large house in Venice next to the beach. Everything's fine. Ash and I had a sleepover at our house. I mumbled, opening my eyes and looking at my best friend who was asleep. His auburn hair slightly covered his eyes and he had naturally long eyelashes that many girls in school were jealous of. Oh, does Damien know that you brought a friend over for the night? She asked, curious. Of course he knew. I lied, biting into my lower lip. As long as he knew that you brought a friend over, then that's good. She says, but there was an undertone to her voice like she called me for a reason. Mother, why did you call me? I questioned, expecting the worst out of this conversation. I looked away from my best friend and out the window. The leaves on the trees had turned a slightly orange and red color while the sky was cloudy. But not even the beauty of the fall could calm me down from my anxiety. Honey, her voice tells me that I was right about her calling me for a reason. What's going on? It's 6 in the morning and I knew that you wouldn't call me for no reason. I say the anxiety was growing stronger and stronger. It's about school. They called me yesterday and told me that you were failing math class. I'm very concerned about that. She explained, her voice stern. What? But I did the math test on Friday. You can even ask Ash. He saw me go to math class and do the test. I argued with her. I knew deep down that Sophia had something to do with this, since she wants me out of town and the pack. Honey, the principal called me. She told me that you had tried to cheat on the math test again. It's the second time that you have done this. It's absolutely humiliating to this family, to me. I hear how her voice changes in a split second, from worried to shameful. I have told you many times already, I have nothing to do with this. I remember that I answered every single question on the math test without cheating. It was a hopeless battle since she never believed in me. You know that I adopted you because you were such a bright and clever boy. But this is how you repay me. You live in a house that many could only dream about. You get an allowance every month. You have food, a bed to sleep on, and clothes to wear. You even have a mother, so why is it hard for you to do a test without cheating? Her angry words were directed at me. When I adopted you, I had such high expectations for you. You were the prettiest and the smartest among the children in the foster home. But why did you end up being such a disappointment? You don't even have a mate. She raises her voice at me. I blink away the tears that gathered in my eyes, feeling the shame and guilt growing within me since I couldn't be the son that she has always wanted. My adoptive mother, Anna Carey, adopted me at the age of 6. She found me in a foster home since I had jumped from different foster homes, almost 10 different homes, but I got beaten and rejected by all of them. Anna Carey accepted me. She was the first adult in my life who didn't reject me or lay a hand on me. It was a refreshing experience for a 6-year-old. Though she had high expectations of me, which could be very hard to reach. Have I spoiled you too much over the years? Should I have sent you away to a boarding school when you were 15? I can't believe I raised a son who cheats on tests and almost gets expelled from school. Do you know how humiliated I was when I had to sit in the meeting with other parents and decide if you were going to get expelled or not? Thankfully, your stepfather, Richard, had the connections to put a stop to you from getting expelled. She yelled over the phone, which meant that Damien's father wasn't in her presence. My mother, Anna, has never shown this side of her in front of others, not even to Damien or Richard, since she's good at keeping her mask on. She's a very charismatic woman to other people, but to me, she shows her true colors. Mother, I have never ever cheated on a test in my life. I have never used drugs in my life. Someone tried to expel me from school. I tried to argue again, but it was to no use. How did the drugs end up in your bag? Are you telling me that it's someone in the pack who hates you? That's absurd. My husband has raised a peaceful and strong pack. What you're saying could count as a punishment. She says, as she has never wanted to listen to my side. I couldn't argue with her since she would take my words and use them against me. She would call me spoiled, delusional, or mentally ill. Sorry, Mother, it will never happen again. I told her the words that she wanted to hear from me. You better be sorry. I'm going to hire private tutors once I get back from the vacation. She sounded slightly pleased, but she was still angry. Okay, Mother, are you going to behave in school? She asked, her voice sharp. Yes, Mother. Good, don't call me. I will call you. Bye, honey. She hangs up. I stared at the phone in my hand. This was a regular conversation between me and my mother. I'm not even allowed to call her by her name or Mom. It always has to be Mother. I sighed, putting the phone on my nightstand before looking at my best friend, who was still sleeping and hadn't heard the conversation. What would happen if my adoptive mother knew that Damien and I were mates? The world would end. Elliot Ash had stayed over for the entire weekend because I didn't want to be left alone with Damien. It was a pretty chill weekend where we played games on my PC or watched a TV show. Sadly, it was already Monday morning when Damien was knocking on the door, trying to wake us up. Elliot, I wake up. School starts in an hour. And I will take you to school because I heard from Dad that you had broken your leg. He yelled. his voice deep and rough around the edges. I almost jumped out of bed since I got frightened because he never went near my bedroom. This was the first time he even had knocked on my door. But did he know I was his mate? The hallway to my bedroom is covered in my scent. Hold up, did the pack doctor tell Richard about my leg? It seems like it. Also, can I talk to your friend for a second? I will be waiting in the kitchen. He didn't ask because it sounded more like an order. But why did he want to talk with Ash? He has never talked to my best friend before. At that moment, it clicked in my mind. Damien thought Ash was his mate. He thinks you're mates. I felt a bitter emotion rise within me. What? Why? Ash opens his eyes, sitting up on the bed since he had just woken up. I don't know, he must have confused our scents. I mumbled under my breath. Oh shit, how could he make such a weird assumption? His words began to falter when he realized how Damien made that kind of assumption. I went to the bathroom during the night. I think he must have been in the hallway because I saw a large figure standing there, but I thought my mind was making up things since I was half asleep. Ash explained, yawning in the process. Are you for real? I whispered. I was a bit sad that Damien took one look at my best friend and was like it must be my mate. But I couldn't blame him. He hadn't heard from his wolf for over 4 years. He couldn't even shift. No wonder he was so desperate. Elliot, you have to make up your mind sooner or later. Will you tell him that you are mates or not? I know that he's a man whore, that he ignores you like a corpse, but isn't it better if you went through with it instead of worrying about it? Ash questioned, since he was concerned about me. I'm terrified. Ash, what if he never wants to see me again because he's disgusted by having me as his mate? I say, feeling hopeless about the situation. What would everyone in town think that 2 stepbrothers are mates? Damien might get kicked out from the pack, even if he's the alpha. Still, it would be hard to throw Damien out because he's extremely tough and nobody wants to mess with him unless you got a death wish. If Damien rejects you, I promise that you can come and stay with me until graduation. You're not alone in this. He pats me on the shoulder whenever he wants to comfort me. What day would be perfect? I don't want to do it on a Monday morning. Maybe I should text him and say that I want to talk to him over dinner. I thought deeply about it. That sounds good. You can do it next weekend once your leg is better. Right now, you can focus on gathering your thoughts since you only found out that Damien is your mate a few days ago, so the shock is still there. His words give me much comfort and support. I agree with you. I want to do it once my legs get better because if he rejects me, I want to at least have the ability to run away from him. I muttered, but it makes my best friend laugh his ass off. I went on to ask, what should we do in this situation? If you approach Damien, he will know that you're not his mate and that I'm his mate. He's not that dumb. I guess we will have to go through the window in order to avoid him. Ash replied, standing up from the bed and putting on his clothes. Should I text Damien now? I asked him. Sure, as long as he doesn't come running inside like his ass is on fire. Ash responds, looking at himself in the mirror. Trust me, he won't come running. I mumbled, pulling out my phone. I searched for Damien in my contacts until I found him right away, since I didn't have many phone numbers. My hands started to tremble because I have never texted him in my life. It felt pretty scary. Hey, this is Elliot. Sorry, my friend can't meet with you today. He has to go to school early because he doesn't want to miss a test. But I wonder if you are free next weekend. I really need to talk to you about something very important. Can you on Saturday at 5 p.m.? Elliot, I sent him the text. I gave my best friend the phone since my hands couldn't stop shaking. This is good. Ash says his eyes were glued on the phone screen until he almost choked on his breath. What? I questioned. My heart was almost beating out of my chest. That was very fast. Ash handed me the phone. Elliot, I have time on Saturday at 5 p.m., but I must talk with your friend, Damien. I promise that you can talk to him next weekend on Saturday. When we meet, he's just very busy right now with school. Elliot, fine. Damien, he has agreed to talk with me next weekend. I smile, feeling both excited and terrified. Keep that smile because you're going to need it. Ash says, before he helps me climb out the window. Yeah, I was going to need all the strength I could get. Elliot, over the past week and a half, my school life has been peaceful because Sophia was nowhere to be seen after I had tried to choke her to death. I was walking around with crutches in school, but it was very difficult since people would trip me over because nobody showed me respect, even if my stepbrother was Damien Reed. I think it's because of those rumors that Sophia spread about me. She spread rumors that I was a whore, selling my body to alphas from neighboring packs, and that I was a drug addict, using the Reed family's money to buy drugs. I honestly wish that somebody could kill her. She's nothing but a thorn in my life. On the other hand, I hadn't seen Damien all week because he had stayed over at the pack house. But I heard that Simon is no longer the future beta. Instead, the beta is going to be someone else. I was excited about those news because Simon can shove his own dick in his ass. Though I had been nervous since I was going to have dinner with Damien on Saturday, where he would find out I'm his mate. Your leg has healed faster than I had expected. The pack doctor pulled me out of my thoughts. He had taken off the bandage as he was examining my left leg. Did you find your mate? Or else it would have taken you at least 3 weeks to heal. The man questioned, as wolves' heals way faster than humans. No, I mostly stayed at home and rested my leg. I half lied. I did rest at home in my bed, but I had stolen 3 pairs of Damien's shirts since his scent lingered on them, and I used his scent to heal myself. I felt guilty because Damien had troubles with his inner wolf, and here I was using his scent to heal my left leg. Hopefully things will work out on Saturday, and that he can get his wolf back in full form since he deserves it. I have checked the CT scans, and the bones in your left leg are completely healed. You won't need the bandage or the crutches anymore. The pack doctor announced the good news. I had hoped to heal before my meeting with Damien. After checking upon my leg, I headed out of the pack doctor's office. It felt amazing that I could walk again because I wouldn't get tripped by my classmates anymore. I walked along the hallway until something caught my attention, and it was the 2 women standing at the end of the corridor. I hid myself behind the vending machine once I recognized the young woman who was standing and talking with a nurse. The young woman was Mia, Sophia's older sister. Mia had her dark hair in a ponytail, wearing a pink tank top with a white skirt. I want to check if I'm pregnant. Mia asked the nurse. Did you do a pregnancy test? The nurse questioned her. No, but I want to do an ultrasound because the last time I had sex was over 2 weeks ago. Mia explained, but the nurse in front of her looked skeptical. Wolves' pregnancy can detect a baby at 2 weeks because it grows rapidly, but we still carry our pups over the course of 9 months. Pretty please, Sam. Mia seemed to know the nurse, calling her by her name. Fine, but let's make it quick, okay? The nurse says, leading Mia into a hospital room. My heart felt like it had stopped because if Mia was pregnant, then the baby would be Damien Reed's child. Elliot, tomorrow, I will have ed-hoc with Damien Reed, and I will either get rejected or accepted by him. I was sitting in math class, almost falling asleep because we had a substitute teacher since the math teacher was sick. The substitute teacher told us to open our math books and work in them while he sat behind the desk, looking through his phone since he could care less about this class. I glanced out the window where there was heavy rainfall in town. The rain poured on the windows, which made me want to curl in bed and fall asleep instead of slaving away in a math class. Did you hear that there's going to be a party today at 8 p.m.? A girl whispered behind me. She was talking with her friend. I heard, and it's at the pack house, right? Damien Reed is the one throwing the party to welcome Kai Lockhart as his right-hand man. The other girl exclaimed excitedly. Everyone will be there except the elderly and the pups. It will be so much fun. We will even get to meet Damien Reed. It will be an honor to meet him since he has done many good things to the pack. They weren't wrong. Damien had been taking care of the pack business, building up new houses for pack members and protecting the pack's borders. There were also no wars with the neighboring packs, and Damien had a good relationship with his cousin who was the Alpha King, who lived in New York. I know, but I really want to see if the rumors are true. If Damien Reed is very hot. One of the girls giggled. Can you both shut up? The girl next to me, who was dressed in a leather jacket, asked the girls behind us. She had midnight blue hair which was in a messy bun. She had a few tattoos covering her arms. I knew her since she was a biker chick and a troublemaker according to rumors. But rumors were shit. You have to be the judge yourself instead of judging what you hear from another person. What is it, Nova? Why are you even in class when you always skip school? One of the girls tried to insult the biker chick, Nova, which was a bad thing. This is why I skip school when I have girls like you in class. And Damien Reed wouldn't go for girls like you. You're too young for him. The biker chick, Nova, made the girls shut up. Nova returned to look through her math book as she was actually studying, answering every question in the book. What? She turned in my direction, glaring at me because I had stared a little long. "Nothing. You were just so cool," I murmured, since she wasn't the typical girl or guy in town. "Thanks, not many think I'm cool, they think I'm a bitch." Nova smiles, reaching out her hand to me. We shook hands as she reminded me of Kai Lockhart, where they may be related. I'm Nova Lockhart. She told me her name as we released our hands from each other. I was right, she had the same last name as Kai. You're related to Kai. He's a nice guy, very chill to talk to. I say, seeing a few similarities between them, like their hazel eyes. I love my brother, he's very easygoing, but once somebody pisses him off, he becomes like another person. She explains, moving her chair closer to me. Really? Hopefully I will never piss him off. I tell her, sarcasm dripping from my voice. How come I never saw you in class? I have seen you in school, but never in math class. I ask, my voice holding no judgment, only curiosity. I was actually a dropout because I failed the last year of high school, but my parents forced me to go over my senior year so that I would graduate. Nova answered my question. So you're 19? Yes, I'm turning 20 next year. Cool. So are you going to the party at the pack house? She inquired, her gaze was glued on me. No, I think I will stay at home. I reply, looking at the math book in front of me. Why not? You can join me and my friends, they would be happy to meet you, you can bring along your friends. She says, her voice holding no malice. Haha, I only have one friend and that's Ash. I don't know. We don't know each other very well, but if you want to get to know me, here's my phone number, so call me if you change your mind. She hands me a piece of paper as the bell rings at that exact moment. She waves goodbye before heading out of math class. I look at the piece of number on my hand, and it was weird that I had made a new friend. For the first time in 3 years, I felt excited to have possibly made a new friend since I only had one friend before. Hopefully, everything would turn out to be okay, and that there would be no backstabbing. Elliot, do I look good? I ask my best friend, who's sitting on my bed and eating a bag of Cinny Minis. I looked in the long mirror which hung on the wall. My honey blonde hair was tousled nicely. I was dressed in a beige hoodie with a pair of cargo pants because the colors matched my golden eyes and light hair. You look like the sun in the sky. You look like honey. Ash tried to be poetic. He was already dressed in a dark hoodie and a pair of black pants. He looked emo, and he probably felt emo. Honey, you mean the thing you put in tea? Yes, you're so bright like a sparkle of light. Ash jokes and I hit him on the shoulder. After getting Nova's number, I called her and wanted to meet her at the party. That's why Ash and I had gotten ready for the party at the pack house that was thrown for Kai Lockhart. Are you ready? Ash asks, bringing a small bag with him to put our phones. Yes, I'm nervous because we're going to a gathering or a party hosted by Damien. I whispered under my breath, but my best friend dragged me out of the house. We were going, whether I had second thoughts or not. Nova was waiting outside the house since I had texted her to pick us up because she had her car, which was a dark red Nissan. We entered the car. Ash took the passenger seat because he's a very social person that never runs out of battery. Nova and Ash hit it off. They couldn't stop talking through the entire ride to the pack house. Lovers Rock by TV Girl was blasting in the car, and all of us had begun to sing along. It felt nice. A warm feeling gathering inside my heart that I hadn't felt for a long time. Nova drives for about 20 minutes until she turns left into a small road that leads to the pack house. On the small road to the pack house, I could see the small houses of the pack members that were spread all around the forest, until the forest begins to thin and I spot the large villa peeking through the trees. Almost there, Nova says, and the massive house comes fully into view. The villa, nestled deep in the forest, is a stunning sight, and it's a massive 4-story house. It's a large place, built to fit up to 100 people easily, with plenty of spaces and bedrooms. The Moonlight Pack symbol is carved on the white front door. The symbol is of 2 moons that are entwined. There are people outside the pack house who are transforming into their wolf form. They are running around and playing with each other in their wolf forms because it was dark and the full moon was in the sky. Nova parks in the large driveway next to the other cars. We step outside and head towards the pack house that is filled with bustling activity. Nova greets a few people since she seems to know many wolves because of her brother Kai Lockhart, who's the beta. I glance beside me, but my best friend is nowhere to be seen. I look behind, and I see him talking to a few of his friends on the driveway. It's best to leave him be. He can find me whenever he wants to. Nova and I make our way inside the house, heading towards the large dining room where everyone is sitting at a very long wooden table, their plates filled with food. Elliot, it was around lunchtime when I woke up in a strange bedroom. I was alone. There was none in sight. The room was quiet. The only sound was the steady tick from the clock. I felt groggy, but alive, until the realization hit me like a big wave. Damien knows that I'm his mate. I sat on the bed, looking around the bedroom, which was covered in Damien's scent in every inch of the room. This was Damien's bedroom. I was sitting on his king-size bed, which must have cost a fortune. I had never been in his bedroom in my life. It was a forbidden place to enter since it was his safe haven, even if he only came twice a year. I glanced around the vast bedroom, since it was foreign to me. I looked to my left where there were large windows that covered one wall. It was a balcony which had the view of the entire backyard. His bedroom reminded me of the rest of the house, a modern interior which had gray walls. It was almost like an apartment. The bedroom connected to a small living room where he could chill, and he even had a walk-in closet. He lived like a king. Thankfully, I wasn't naked. I was wearing an oversized white shirt along with my briefs. It was Damien's shirt. After all, he must have changed me since I fell on the muddy ground. You're finally awake. You have been sleeping ever since you passed out. Damien's voice sent shivers down my spine. The devil himself, who was called Damien Reed, was leaning against the door frame with his arms crossed, and the sleeves of his black shirt were rolled up to his elbows, exposing his tattoos. The dark shirt had put his muscles on display, and I couldn't help but stare at him. He was wearing dark sweatpants. The mere sight of his well-trained thighs caused me to feel weak and flushed. He could crush someone's skull with them. Are you admiring the view? He teased me because my gaze had lingered way too long on him. Lord have mercy on me. He's so fucking hot. I turned away from him, hiding under the bed covers since I felt embarrassed. I heard his footsteps. I heard him walking over to the bed until I felt the bed dip. He had sat down on the edge of the bed. Elliot, we need to talk, he says, his voice filled with concern. This sends alarms in my mind. What if he rejects me? What if he throws me away? I pulled the covers away from myself, but I sat further away from Damien because I didn't want him to see my worried face. This situation is weird for us, but we need to talk about it. I can feel his eyes on my back. I never expected you to be my mate. I had never imagined in hundreds of years that out of all the people you would become my destined partner. He expresses his feelings. We have never talked to each other. We're basically like strangers. He adds, I remain quiet. I only focus on not passing out again. But it's difficult. This topic is difficult because rejection can kill a wolf. You're my mate. How did you find out? Damien questions, but he keeps his distance from me. I cleared my throat 2 weeks ago on the 1st of October. Elliot, my mate, Damien Reed, drives his sports car to McDonald's at my request. It was late at night, almost past midnight, when I suddenly craved McDonald's, chicken wings and fries. After he bathed me, we cuddled all day until my heat slowly disappeared because I was sleeping. Now I was starving. One word from me and we were on our way to McDonald's in town. The chicken wings from McDonald's seemed to call out to me. Are you okay? Damien suddenly asked because I got carried away, dreaming about the chicken wings. I'm fine, I answer, shifting in my seat. I was sitting beside him in the car, but I can't help and steal glances his way as he drives. He's effortlessly handsome at 22 years old. With one hand gripping the steering wheel and the other resting gently on my thigh, I feel a spark of electricity, a reminder of how close we are. If you're not feeling fine, I will turn around, so you must tell me. It sounds more like an order, but he's worried about me. No, I want food. I almost argue, glancing at him, but his eyes are focused on the road. They are intense and deep. Every now and then he glances over at me, and when our eyes meet, I feel a flutter in my chest. There's something about the way he looks at me, like he's truly seeing me, that makes me feel both excited and at ease. I can't help but admire him. The way he moves, even in the small confines of the car, is fluid and confident, like he's completely at ease in his own skin. Damien's wearing a black shirt. The shirt itself was a bit wrinkly. The first few buttons of the shirt were undone. The dark fabric stretches slightly across his bored chest whenever he shifts in his seat, a subtle reminder of his strength. He's a muscular guy. There was no denying that fact. No wonder that girls are crazy about him. He's hot as fuck. I can't hold back if you're going to look at me with those eyes. Damien says, his voice low but heavy with desire and lust for me. How do I look at you? Like you would love sit on my lap and ride my dick. Damien doesn't hold back his words since he isn't wrong. I glanced at Damien's hand on my thigh and I love the affection he gives me, but now his touch is setting my skin on fire again. I'm really like a dog in heat. Then we're both like dogs in heat, Damien comments since I had accidentally spoken to him through our mate bond. I stared at the dark road in front of me, hoping that he didn't see my flushed face since it was almost dark in the car. After a few moments of comfortable silence, I glanced at his phone because there was a call coming from his phone and the caller was Mia. Damien put his phone on mute, but she didn't stop calling him, leaving him many text messages. I miss you. I miss your dick and your bed. I need you inside of me. Mia sent a photo. I looked away from his phone, biting into my lower lip as I quickly wiped a few tears from my eyes. I didn't want to know what kind of photo she sent him since I could already guess, a nude picture. I couldn't stop the tears which fell from my eyes since I felt jealous and betrayed in a way, even if I had no right to feel betrayed. Nobody told me to wait for my mate, but I still waited for him while he slept around with girls in town. My nails were digging into the palm of my hand since I tried to ease the ache and jealousy in my heart as mates feel jealousy on another level. It took 10 minutes until we had arrived at McDonald's. I had managed to calm down, shifting my focus on something else. Damien parked the car in the parking lot as we headed out of the car. We made our way to McDonald's, and there were a few wolves sitting at the tables since it was a Sunday night. Their eyes turned in our direction, almost lighten up at the sight of their alpha, Damien. But I saw Sophia sitting at one of the tables, and she wasn't alone. She was with her sister, Mia. Sophia noticed my presence like Mia had noticed Damien. I ignored her, walking over to the large screen, picking takeaway, and then picking the things I wanted to eat since I wasn't going to eat here. Damien picked a few things as well until he paid, and we waited for our order. But we didn't wait alone. Mia walked up to him, slowly and seductively swaying her hips since she was wearing a dark mini skirt which almost showed her ass. Damien. She purred like she was a cat in heat. I have missed you. She lowers her eyes to his groin area until she looks back at him. You haven't called for me. You haven't answered my texts or calls. Hopefully you have seen the picture I sent you. It's your favorite part of my body. Mia lays a hand on his chest, playing with the first buttons of his shirt. Mia flutters her eyelashes at him. My pussy. You can come over to my place and eat my puss, I snapped, my frustration boiling over since I couldn't take this shit. I'm not hungry anymore. I stormed out of the building, tears welled up in my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Mia was a single young woman, she could fuck whoever she wanted, but Damien was my mate. Why didn't he push her away? Why did he allow her to touch his chest? Why didn't he say anything? Was I expecting too much from him? I shifted into my wolf, running into the forest since I didn't want to see his face or else I would punch him. Damien tried to communicate with me through our bond, but I shut him down since I was very insecure about my inexperienced past. I should have slept with someone when I was younger, right? I should have gotten some experience. But it was my choice to wait for my mate, since I didn't want to sleep with anybody but my mate. Yet I couldn't get rid of the jealous feelings because it consumed my mind. Elliot, I ran away from him. I cried into my best friend's embrace. I ran away from my chicken wings and fries. I cried, taking a napkin and blowing my nose. It's okay. Ash was confused. He was barely awake, since it was 3 a.m. when I had knocked on his window and woken him up. Mia came up to him, talking about her pussy and that she should sit on his face. I sniffled, but my best friend's eyes were threatening to close themselves. And you know what he did? He didn't push her away, he allowed her to touch his chest. I sobbed in his arms until I heard a few snores coming out his mouth. This fucker had fallen asleep. I pulled away from him as he was deep asleep, snoring loudly and proudly. I wiped tears from my eyes, changing my clothes since I didn't want to wear Damien's hoodie. Instead, I borrowed my best friend's clothes as we were the same size. I lay beside him, pulling the bed covers over my body and allowing sleep to take over me. It was a Sunday morning when I woke up feeling groggy and disoriented until I recalled the jealousy of seeing Mia being all over my mate. I sighed, glancing on my right where my best friend was asleep since he loved sleeping until noon. But he would be my therapist for the day. Wake up. I tried to wake him, but he wouldn't budge. Wake up and I will order pizza, I say, but he was still asleep. Damien accepted me as his mate, I told him, which made him jolt out of bed. What? Ash yelled, his eyes wide out of shock. He accepted you. Yes, Damien accepted me as his mate, but... Ash sits on the bed, his eyes filled with curiosity. We went to McDonald's since I was starving, and while we were waiting on our order, Mia came up to him and started flirting with him. My voice was barely a whisper. What did he do? I heard that alphas don't like others touching them once they find their mate. Ash questioned since he didn't seem to recall my outburst during the night. Mia placed a hand on his chest, even playing with his shirt. She rambled on and on how much she missed him and his dick until she asked him to come over to her place so that he could eat her pussy. I explained, feeling stunned, since I hoped it had been a nightmare. Are you serious? He didn't do anything. Damien just allowed her to touch him, like she was his mate, I told him, almost gagging over my sentence. But didn't Sophia's and Mia's dad challenge Damien? I heard that he's being tortured underground for disobeying the alpha. Ash says, rubbing his sleepy eyes. Yeah, their father is being tortured, but Mia has no shame and Damien has also no shame. They are the perfect match. I should send them a congratulation card to the happy pair. I joke, but I feel the bitterness in my words. Suddenly, Ash's mother opened the door to his room. Good morning, she says, as she isn't surprised to find me. Elliot, are you taking me to school? I questioned early on a Monday morning. The rain was pouring heavily on the kitchen windows. I'm taking you to school from now on, and I'm picking you up from school. Damien left no room for argument, and I wouldn't argue since I was too lazy to walk. What will you do today? I asked him, taking a bite of the fried eggs since he had made breakfast for me. He was sitting across from me with an iPad in his hand and his plate filled with food. I will be at the pack house. He answered, the Alpha King, my uncle, will come and visit in 2 weeks during Halloween. The Alpha King is not your cousin. He's your uncle. Yeah, he's my uncle, but he's closer to my age. That's why people mistake him for being my cousin. Damien explained. His eyes were glued on the iPad in his hands. How is he? Does he really live in a large castle to a huge lake? He's a cold person. I lived with him for a month in his castle and I wanted to move away. Damien answered, slightly shaking his head. How's his wife? The Luna Queen. I heard that they live in a happy home. He must love her a lot since she's his mate. I mentioned the Alpha King's wife, who was known in the entire werewolf society. Damien glanced at me. Don't say that to my uncle because his wife isn't his mate. He's 32 years old, and he hasn't found his mate yet. I covered my mouth with my hands since I was surprised. She isn't his mate. But everyone is talking about how happy they are together. They even have a baby. Don't tell my uncle that I told you this secret, but he hasn't found his mate. He's very miserable without his mate. He's a good Alpha King, but without his mate, the man has become suicidal. He hasn't shifted into his wolf for over a decade. Damien's words honestly shocked me since everybody in the werewolf society was praising the couple. Everybody wanted to be like them. It felt tragic to hear how it was behind closed doors. But he married his wife. They even have a newborn baby together. What if his mate shows up? I asked since curiosity got the best of me. Listen here, Elliot. My uncle, the Alpha King, has waited for his mate for over 12 years. The man almost took his own life. He married his wife when he was 30, an arranged marriage since there's a myth that if you don't find your mate when you're over 30, you don't have one, and if he didn't have a mate, he would be dethroned. Damien explained the Alpha King's situation. So your uncle married his wife to not lose his position. Because if people found out that he didn't have a mate, he would be dethroned. So he lied and told everyone that he had found his mate, if I understand it right. I muttered, trying to summarize everything. Exactly, but don't mention this to him. He would go mad since this is a sensitive subject for him. Damien sighed, looking back at the iPad. I nodded, focusing on my breakfast, but I still wondered who the Alpha King's mate was. I believed that he still had a mate out there. Though it would be an angsty reunion since the Alpha King is married to a woman, he even has a newborn child with her. Elliot, my body ached, my ass was sore, and my neck was finally marked by Damien Reed. I was in Damien's personal bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror as I felt nothing but fucking amazing. Damien and I had fucked throughout the entire day in his personal master bedroom in the pack house. We had done it everywhere in his bedroom, on the floor, on the couch, on the bed, against the wall. He fucked me in every spot that was available. It was past midnight when we had fallen asleep until I woke up at 6 in the morning and dragged myself out of bed, going to the bathroom since I needed to piss. Once I was done, I caught sight of myself in the mirror above the sink. I almost screamed since I had hickeys everywhere, but the worst was between my legs on my thighs. Damien's favorite part of my body was my thighs. He loved to kiss them, bite on them, and leave marks behind. I glanced between my thighs, seeing his cum trickle down my legs since we hadn't used protection. Damien had gone raw on me. Though Damien had shown me that he was tested negative last week for sexual diseases. I needed a shower, and I needed to change the bedsheets since they were covered in our body fluids. I took a quick glance at the king-sized bed where Damien was sprawled naked on the bed. He didn't seem to mind sleeping in that bed. Buzz has a big cock and a very nice ass. I shook my head, returning to the sink and splashing cold water on my face, since I needed to give my mind a break. My body could heal very fast as a wolf, but my mind could not, and I was afraid of becoming an addict of having sex with my mate. I bet all my money if I climbed on top of Damien, he would fuck me until I passed out and fall asleep with his cock buried deep inside of me. I ignored those thoughts since I really needed a shower. I turned on the water in the shower, stepping inside when I got the right temperature. I washed myself for a few minutes until I heard Damien walking inside the bathroom and stepping inside the shower. "You weren't in bed." His voice was low and sleepy. He stood behind me, pressing his chest against my back and wrapping his hands around my body. I wanted to shower. I stank like shit. I answered, massaging my hair with shampoo, then allowing the water to wash it away. Damien had other plans for me as his hand found my cock. He slowly began to stroke my cock in the shower. Damien, I have school." I moaned as his palm clenched tightly around my cock, and I felt like I was about to explode from pleasure. "You will call in sick today." Damien nibbled on my ear as he didn't stop fucking my cock with his hand. "I can't miss school, I have a test," I told him, shutting my eyes since I was addicted to the pleasure. "Don't worry, I will make a quick call to the school so you can do the test another day," Damien says, and I felt his cock pressed against my ass. "Fine, you win." I moaned as I came hard in his hand. My entire body was on fire since I had gone into a sudden heat. Good, because I already made the phone call. It was Friday when I headed to the cafeteria for lunch after class had ended. Ash joined me as we grabbed food before heading to a table in the corner of the busy and loud cafeteria. There was a person who dropped ketchup on the floor, which made my best friend almost stumble on the floor since he thought it was pig's blood. My best friend was still startled. He got traumatized as he didn't go anywhere near the janitor's closet. But he didn't stop being my best friend. He didn't want to since he said it wasn't my fault, which brought tears to my eyes. "So, what have you been up to?" Ash asked, because I had been absent from school the past 3 days. "I lost my virginity and got marked by Damien." I confessed to my best friend as we were sitting in the school cafeteria eating lunch. Ash dropped the fork on the table. His eyes went wide, but his mouth went wider. "That's why I missed school these past 3 days. We were at the pack house mating like rabbits," I say, taking a bite of the meatball. Ash had stopped working for a few seconds until he almost yelled on the top of his lungs, but I slapped a hand over his mouth. I released my hand once I knew that he had calmed down from his shock. "You got marked by Damien and lost your virginity. How was it?" Ash questioned. Since he was also a virgin, he wanted to know the experience. "It was amazing. I have never felt that way in my life. I'm afraid that I will become a sex addict," I commented, taking another bite of the meatball on my fork. "Really?" "So it was true that having sex with your mate is a mind-blowing experience." Ash mumbles, staring at his plate of food. "It is mind-blowing, but the best part is the marking. It's like I was on drugs even when I have never ever been high in my life." I explained the emotions I felt during the mating process. "Does it hurt? Is there even a slight pain?" Ash sounded scared. "In my case, there wasn't any pain. I only felt pleasure and a euphoric feeling." I showed him my right shoulder where there was a tooth mark from Damien. It was red and swollen now, but in a few days it would turn into a beautiful scar. That looks like it hurts. Ash winced at the sight of my right shoulder. I can promise you that it doesn't hurt. It feels fucking amazing. I say with a smile on my face. I felt like my face was basically glowing. I'm happy for you. After that, my best friend grows silent. He's barely eating the food on his plate. Are you okay? I asked out of concern. I just feel lonely, he groaned, sounding miserable. You have found your mate. You have lost your virginity. You're in love and glowing, almost blinding my eyes. I'm very happy for you, but I feel lonely. He whined like a little bitch. You're not alone. You have other friends. I recalled when he stopped and talked with a few guys at the pack house. We're loners in this school. We only have each other. Ash explained, finally taking a bite of the garlic bread. You have friends. I saw those people you stopped by to talk with that night during the pack house party. Those were my family members. He cleared up the misunderstanding. Oh, so you really are a lone wolf. I teased him, but he showed me the middle finger. Don't worry, my friend, I will not leave you. I may not be a virgin anymore, but you will find your own mate. I assured him since we were best friend. I can only hope. Elliot, mature audience, 18, they have been thrown in cells and will be interrogated, but they will go to jail for what they have done. The town's sheriff, who was a wolf, explained. I was sitting inside Damien's office in the pack house. The rain was still pouring on the windows as the weather was cold. I was sitting in a chair next to Damien with a fleece blanket wrapped around me. I felt safe and protected since my mate had his hand on my thigh, which sent butterflies in my belly. Damien didn't want to let me out of his sight. He was terrified when he found me in a pool of pig's blood. I had never seen him this angry in my life, even when he used to fight with his dad. On the other hand, my best friend had recovered from the shock as he had been taken home by his parents. Still, I felt guilty, since he was dragged into this mess because of me. I put great trust in you, Sheriff. Don't make me doubt or else I will fire you. He warned the town's sheriff, who was under his control. I will make sure that the truth comes to light. The sheriff bowed his head in respect for his alpha. The man turned to look at me, wanting to get closer for some reason, but Damien's harsh words stopped the sheriff. Get any closer to him, and I will rip your tongue out, Sheriff. Damien warned as his threats were not empty. Yes, my apologizes. The sheriff bowed his head again before he made his way out of Damien's office. The moment the doors closed, I looked at my mate, who still hadn't calmed down. He was mad. Damien, has this happened before? He cut me off in a harsh way, and when I didn't answer him, he grew even more angry. Has this happened before? Damien asked me one more time. Yes, I managed to answer since he was slightly scaring me. Did they do this often? Damien mentioned them as he meant about those two guys who were thrown in cells after throwing blood on me. Yes, not only them, but it was also my words got cut off because Kai Lockhart had stormed inside without knocking. Alpha, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Simon Nash is here to see you. He's protesting. The beta explained, his face flushed since he seemed to be in a hurry. Tell him to come to my office. Instead of acting like a 5-year-old sorry for interrupting you, but he's breaking down the front door with an axe. Kai explained quickly. Simon was committing a great crime by destroying the front door, which has the pack symbol of the 2 moons. The dethroned beta is basically announcing a revolt against Damien Reed by destroying the front door. Damien hurried out of his office, but before he left, he went on to say, "Don't leave this office, Elliot." Kai and Damien made their way out of his office, leaving me alone, but I could hear the sounds from outside, the sound of Simon's voice yelling and shouting. 20 minutes must have gone by, but Damien was still not back, and I was worried. I tried to reach out to him through our bond, but he wasn't answering me. He had shut me out. Elliot, the history class, was about to end in 5 minutes, and I had just finished writing my essay on the laptop, sending the assignment in. I'm finally done. I smiled, feeling proud of myself. Good work, I have barely begun with mine. Nova says with ease in her voice, since she doesn't really care about school. In the Werewolf Society, you don't need a high school degree if you want to become a pack warrior. You only need strength. That's why Nova doesn't care if she gets a low grade. She only wants to graduate high school, then become a pack warrior, as the alpha will provide for his warriors. I think I will find my brother's history essay and copy it. Nova sounds proud of the thought. Do you want any help? I asked because I can help her with her essay. Nope, I'm good. I'm way too lazy for school stuff. Plus, we don't even get to learn anything that's useful in life. Nova says, and I agree with her. Suddenly, a text pops up on my phone. I check through my messages to find that Damien has texted me. I'm waiting for you outside, Vita Mia. Damien, what dos Vita Mia mean? I accidentally speak out loud. It means me life. I had a boyfriend who was from Italy, and he was a smooth talker. He even taught me a few Italian words. Nova answered, since she thought I had asked her a question. Thanks, now I have a person who can translate Italian for me. I thanked her, but I needed to text Damien back. Okay, my class ends in 5 minutes, my life. Me, I gently chuckle at Damien's response, since he didn't think I would know the words Vita Mia. Oh, who has taught you Italian? Damien Google translate me my cento triste senza di te. Damien, what does this mean? I showed Nova the text message from Damien, but I hid his name from her. I feel sad without you, I think. I'm not 100 fluent in Italian, she says, but I still thank her. I also feel sad without you. Me don't be, look outside. Damien, I look away from the phone screen and I see Damien's sports car standing in the parking lot, waiting for me. I can see a few other students in class looking out the window, since everybody knows whose black Lamborghini this belongs to. That's Damien Reed's car. He's here at our school. I hear the students around me whisper among themselves. Have you ever seen him? I have only seen him from afar since he doesn't make many appearances. But why is Damien here? I don't know. I put my phone in my pocket. The whispering of students grows louder until I hear Sophia's voice at the front of the class. He's here for my sister. Sophia answered their questions with lies. I was about to open my mouth and argue with her, but then I saw her. Mia runs up to Damien's car, but she isn't alone. She's with a group of Omegas. She knocks on his window as Damien steps out of the car, closing the door behind him. Mia literally wraps her hands around his neck and pulls him into a kiss, running her hands through his hair. I felt a sharp pain rush through my body as my heart sank to my feet. I looked away from the window. My hands were shaking as tears threatened to fall. Elliot, Nova's voice is filled with concern since I was almost breaking down in front of her. I looked back, but Damien seemed to have driven away from school as Mia was on the ground. I heard my phone vibrating in my pocket. I knew that it was Damien calling me, but I couldn't pick up since I felt way too pissed. I felt angry that Mia rushed up to Damien and kissed him. Where was the respect for Damien's boundaries? She's sexually harassing him. Aren't you tired of being a delusional bitch? I suddenly questioned Sophia as the class grew silent. The history teacher wasn't in class, since they had gone outside to take a phone call. What about you, Elliot? Aren't you tired of living your life? Of course not, because I'm not living your delusional life. I answered as the class started to laugh at Sophia. I was angry. I felt I could throw Sophia across the classroom. You're just mad that Damien doesn't like you. Everyone knows that you don't have a good relationship. Sophia yells, standing up from her chair. Are you a stalker? How do you know so much about my life? You have to stop, Sophia. This behavior is creepy. First you stalked me in school and now you're stalking me home. I wrapped my hands around myself, creating a vibe of pity. I can't stand this behavior. Even my mother is concerned. Last month, she saw you walking around our house in the middle of the night, taking photos of my window. I pretend to sniffle. For the first time, the classmates looked at Sophia like she was a freak. I was not. The bell rang, cutting off Sophia's words. I smiled as the students avoided her because she did the same thing to me during our first year of high school. She made everyone avoid me and hate me. I told you that I was going to ruin her fucking life, and this is only the beginning. Elliot, mature audience, why aren't you answering my calls? Damien asked once I got inside the car and closed the door behind. After I had gotten out of class and had humiliated Sophia, Damien had returned and was waiting for me by the school. But I don't answer him as he drives off from the high school. We sit in silence, not talking to each other. He drove for a few minutes as we reached the gated community, and he parked the car in the driveway. The moment he turns off the car, I try to open the door, but Damien has locked the car door. What are you doing? I questioned, not staring at him and looking instead at the garage. We need to talk, or else you will be angry at me. You might even run away because that's what you do in hard situations. Damien explains, not unlocking the doors. What are you getting at? I cross my arms over my chest. I don't want to lose you, Elliot. I can't stand the mere thought of losing you. Damien confesses, resting his hand on my thigh because it has become his habit. What about Mia? I forced myself to ask. What about her? Damien narrows his eyes, he looks confused. She's obsessed with you, she ran up to you and kissed you. She disrespects you. I cross my arms over my chest, feeling pissed. How many times will this happen to you? How many girls will come up and kiss you? I questioned, feeling angry and jealous. Damien remained silent, but not for long. I don't give a fuck about Mia. I did sleep around with her for a few months, but I made it clear that I don't want a relationship with her. Then why do I always have to feel jealous and angry? I managed to say, my throat feels tight from holding back my frustration. Mia basically harassed Damien in broad daylight, but nobody cares. He doesn't even seem to care. Why do you make me feel like I could never measure up? Is that how you feel? Damien asks, his gaze remains on me. Yes, that's how I feel. I feel jealous since Mia never seems to go away, and I feel angry that she harassed you. I told him before biting into my lower lip. I can see Damien's gaze darken at my words. I don't love Mia. I have never felt anything for her. She's not my mate or the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with. Yes, I slept with her, but that means nothing to me. Do you regret sleeping with her? Yes, I regret sleeping with her. I regret sleeping with any girl before you. Damien says this a second time. Do you think this can work between us? I asked, not that I could let go of him since we were mates. Damien looked terrified since he thought I wanted to break things off between us. We can make it work. Elliot, we will make it work. Before I know it, his hand is reaching out, his fingertips brushing gently against my cheek. His touch is so soft, almost hesitant, and it sends a shiver down my spine. I can feel my heartbeat picking up, each pulse echoing in the quiet car. His thumb moves slowly, tracing the line of my cheekbone, and the tenderness in his touch makes my heart flutter even more. Elliot Damien drove his sports car inside the garage, and once the garage doors closed, we headed out of the car together. Will you tell him now? I asked in a small voice, since whenever I was nervous, my voice got weaker. Yeah, I will tell my dad now. You're my mate, and I don't plan on treating you like a dirty secret. My dad will have to get a divorce, or he can move away with your mother. Damien says, placing a hand on my lower back. He led me into the house, and we made our way into the kitchen, where Damien's father was unpacking things from his trip. At the sight of us, the man seemed happy. Elliot and Damien, I have heard that you have gotten along well. Richard sounds proud of us since he wanted to have a happy family. Dad, I have something to tell you. Damien didn't beat around the bush. Good, because I also have something to tell you. The man says while placing small boxes on the table. He means that we have something to tell you. Anna comes inside, standing beside Richard. Anna is wearing a large dark coat, as she doesn't seem to plan on taking it off. Oh shit, I have a bad feeling about this. About what? Damien grows agitated by the second. I'm expecting a child. You're going to have a sibling, Damien. Anna's words Arianna directed at Damien, since he is related to the child. Anna takes off her coat where her baby belly is visible. She must have hid her pregnancy from us since she looked to be 5 months. My heart sank to my feet because what did this mean for me and Damien? That's why I'm wondering if Elliot could move to Damien's place for the rest of his senior year, because I don't want to have any teenagers around me. Anna laughs in a gentle manner. But she basically is telling me to fuck off from her life. Why can't Elliot stay with us? He's your son. Richard stops putting the boxes of gifts on the table. Anna's expression changes in a split second. It was his suggestion because he called me last night and begged to move out of here. I never made that kind of call, and last night I was with Damien. Though Anna's gaze was harsh and cold whenever she looked my way. I got cut off by Richard since he stepped out of the kitchen and made his way out of the house. Once Richard was out of sight, Anna went on to say, Damien, you can do whatever you want with Elliot. You can leave him on the street to die or sell him. I don't care. Just get him out of here since I know how much you hate him. I'm playing along with her. Damien spoke through me from our bond. Why should I take him? Damien crossed his arms. Elliot likes you, he doesn't know it yet, but he always looks at you whenever you visit, and I don't want him to be together with you because of this baby, your sibling. Anna placed a hand on her baby belly. Has she always been this vile, Elliot? Yes, Damien, she's only showing you her true colors now. But thankfully, I have signed a document last year when it states that the step-siblings, Damien and Elliot, are not allowed to have any sort of romantic relationship. Anna laughs, covering a hand over her mouth. We are both adults. You can't sign these kinds of contracts without our permission. Damien argued. He was about to explode any second. The Alpha King agreed to sign the contract in his visit last year, since he's the one who's overseeing the werewolf society across the world. Anna answered, looking excited. Once the Alpha King signs any sort of contract about a wolf, there's no way out of the contract unless the king himself breaks off the contract. The Alpha King could sign a marriage certificate for other wolves, and they can't break out of the contract. That miserable motherfucker, I will kill him. Damien had snapped, his eyes had turned red, and he was about to transform to kill Anna. But I placed a hand on his shoulder. Damien, don't attack her. I don't want you to get locked away or hurt yourself. Damien calmed down for my sake, and he said, Anna, you said you called Elliot last night, right? But I was fucking him the entire night. Nobody called him. Anna's face grew flushed and angered. She clenched her fists since she knew that it could lead to a divorce. Do you want to know something else? Elliot is my fucking mate. If you try to tear us apart, I will make your life a living hell. Damien warned the woman. The tension grew in the room until Richard broke the tension among us since he was carrying a big box. Dad, Damien says to his father once the man puts the box down on the floor. Yes, son. I'm happy that Mom died, or else she would have killed herself by having a mate like you. Damien tried to hurt his dad since the guy couldn't be with his mate, with me. Damien stormed off and I followed after him since leaving his side now would be dangerous. He could do something dangerous to himself. Elliot, 3 weeks have passed since the incident with Richard and Anna. Damien has abandoned his alpha duties. He has disappeared from Earth. His phone is off along with the mate bond. I haven't seen him for the past 3 weeks and I have never felt so miserable. After that incident, Damien dropped me off at my best friend's house. He had asked for Ash's parents to take care of me until he returned, which they agreed to. Halloween had passed with me crying myself into the pillow as my best friend had to comfort me. No matter how much I cried, the pain never went away. I needed my mate. That damn Alpha King, he's such a fucking bitch. Ash was angry since he didn't like sad endings. Why did he sign a contract without thinking? What an idiot. He grits his teeth since he knows everything about my situation. I know I tried to set up a meeting with the Alpha King, but I can't since I'm not somebody important. My matters are not important enough. I sniffled in my best friend's lap. We were laying in bed. My head was on his lap as he ran his fingers through my blonde hair. Fuck him. And fuck your mother too, Ash says with anger in his voice. Damien tried to contact the Alpha King, but he got shut away. I think he's searching for another solution to break the contract or else we can't be together by the Alpha King's law. I explained, since Damien had tried to contact the king when we were in the car before he left town. We can't be together until then, or else the penalty would be the death sentence. I confessed to my best friend, barely holding myself together. Anna went to the Alpha King with a contract about you and Damien. The contract stated that you can't be together or else you would face the death penalty. Ash mumbles out of shock. Yes, that's disgusting. You have done nothing wrong. You're both victims in their mess. I had high hopes for the king, but he's a piece of shit. When I see him, he will see my fist. Ash tried to comfort me in his own ways. I smiled through my tears until I felt sick for some strange reason. I jumped off the bed and puked my guts out in the bathroom. Are you okay? Ash questioned since I never got a stomach flu. Yes, I'm okay. I think being sad for too long makes my body sick. I mumbled, heading to the sink and splashing some water on my face. Then we should do something. Ash says once I come out of the bathroom. Do what? I feel awful. It was a long time since I puked. I heard that the Alpha King had delayed his visit since Damien had left the pack for a while, but he rescheduled for today. Ash wears a smug smile on his face. We should totally crash their gathering at the pack house. Damien's dad and Anna are going to have dinner with the most important pack members. Ash explains as he was already getting dressed. What can we do? I ask, feeling hopeless since all I want is my mate. We're going to sneak inside pack houses and observe the situation. Ash puts on a dark blue hoodie since it's cold during the evening. I don't argue because I only want my mate, but if there's something I can do to see Damien again, I would do it. We dress in more formal clothes as we sneak out of the window. We take our bikes and ride towards the pack house. Elliot, it's good that you got here on time, or else you could have died. The pack doctor explained to Ash, who had gotten the antidote, and he had been in surgery. It had been 2 days since we saw the Alpha King, and my best friend was wide awake, but he was ceded to the pain, or else he couldn't bear it. Your hand is healing very slowly. It will take 2 months for you to heal. The man says, looking through his notes as he hadn't missed anything, you will have to be hospitalized for 2 weeks. We need to monitor your condition. Thank you, doctor. His parents thanked the man before he walked out of the hospital room. Ash's parents were by his side, but they looked angry once he left the room. How can you be so stupid? You got yourself hurt and you disrespected the Alpha King. The parents scolded him for a few minutes until they finally left the room. What happened that evening? I asked him, sitting down on a chair. The Alpha King is my mate. He confessed in a hoarse voice. What? I barely got the words out. I couldn't follow you into the room because there was this heavy scent coming from the Alpha King until my inner wolf spoke the words mate. Tears welled in his eyes as he spoke about his mate. He shook his head, glancing at his bandaged hand. Then he was about to shoot you, and I hated him so much. Ash shut his eyes, tears slipped out of the corners until he stood up from the hospital bed. Hey. I stood up from my chair since my best friend had dragged himself out of bed. You can't get out of bed. You almost died from the blood loss and silver poison. I spoke in a worried voice. I need to see him with or without you, Elliot. Ash responds, plugging himself away from the heart monitor and the Roman 4. I knew there was no room left for me to argue since his parents couldn't even stop him. They begged him to stay in the hospital, but he shook his head. Ash was an adult. He could do whatever he wanted. That's why I called Nova and Kai to pick us up from the hospital and drive us to the pack house. Thankfully for the pack doctor who ordered another doctor to come with us. His name was Nico, a friend of Damien, and he would accompany us on the small trip. 20 minutes passed by until Kai and Nova arrived. Kai carried Ash in his arms, putting him in the back seat. Nova took a wheelchair and placed it in the back, since Ash was too weak to walk on his own. The entire ride to the pack house was tense. I was terrified of my best friend dying since he looked pale and sick. When we finally arrived at the pack house, 2 bodyguards stopped the van since they needed our identification. Once they got what they needed, we were allowed inside as Kai parked the van in the driveway. We stepped out of the van as Nova got the wheelchair for Ash. I pushed my best friend in the wheelchair as Nova and Kai waited outside the pack house. Only Nico followed us inside, in case something happened to Ash. We made our way inside the house as I pushed my best friend towards the living room, where Natasha Petrov and her baby sat on the couch along with her mother, and Anna. Elliot Damien and I laid in bed in his bedroom at the pack houser after we had made love to each other. I was trying to heal the wounds from his back since they were slowly healing. He had been whipped 2 times as punishment, and after that the Alpha King didn't bother him. Instead, the older man sought for his mate, who was sent back to the hospital. I thought I would die without you. I mumbled against his soft lips. Damien doesn't say anything, he just pulls me in for a kiss as I wrap my legs around his hips, yearning for him more than ever. I love you, Damien confessed, trailing kisses all over my jawline and neck. Damien, I pant since he wanted to go for another round and I didn't mind, but we needed to talk. What did you do these past 3 weeks? I asked after pulling away from his lips. Damien's expression grew grim for a second before he masked it. Nothing else, only the things you heard about. He wanted to pull in me for another kiss, but we needed to have the talk. Damien, I love you, but please talk to me. You look rough and exhausted. I say, placing a gentle kiss on his forehead. Damien sighed. I killed 20 people because I was going to take down the Alpha King. What? Why? I wanted to give you the world. I wanted to live together with you, without having a death sentence looming over our heads. Damien confessed. He placed his head on my heartbeat. I was planning to do a revolt against the Alpha King. I had found people who could help me, but I only needed to pay them in cash. I was about to take him down since he didn't allow us to be together, but then I heard that someone got shot back in town, and I thought it was you, Elliot. I was so terrified. Damien says, listening in on my heartbeat. I thought I had lost my entire world. Damien's words meant the world to me, and I loved him with all my heart. We are crazy for each other, I whispered with a smile on my face. Damien looked up at me with a confused expression, since he didn't know that I had gone to the Alpha King and almost got shot because I wanted for us to be together. I went to the Alpha King because I demanded he break the contract. I knew it could lead to my death, but death sounds easier than being apart from you, I told him, realizing how far both of us would go for each other. Elliot. Damien lifts his head up from my chest. He stares at me with so much affection that I could drown. What is it, Damien? Ti amo, amore mio. He speaks in Italian, and I know that whatever he's saying, it's out of unconditional love. I'm building a house for us in town. Let's move in together once it's finished. Damien leaned forwards until our foreheads were pressed together. My breath hitched because I would love to live with my mate. The house better be pretty. I want a jacuzzi in the bathroom. There must be a fireplace in the living room, and I want a big backyard where we can grill during the summers. I spoke through the tears since I was feeling so happy. All my life, I thought I was unworthy of happiness and love, but Damien is proving me otherwise. Damien kissed all those happy tears away. You will get everything you want, Elliot. I promise you with all my heart. Nothing and nobody can keep you from me, Elliot Carey. Elliot, 2 weeks passed, and it was already the end of November. The snow would soon make an appearance. Ash was out of the hospital even if his hand wasn't healed. He was coming today, as he was the talk of the school of how he got shot by the Alpha King. I looked out the window of math class because I saw 4 black cars pulling up in the parking lot. The Alpha King is here with my best friend, and they are surrounded by bodyguards. I patiently wait for my best friend until 1 hour passes and Ash walks inside the math class with a bodyguard behind him. He heads towards me, sitting down next to me while the students look at him with curious eyes. The bodyguard takes a seat behind us, as the scary man is always on guard to protect the king's mate. What the hell? I whispered in a hushed tone when he didn't answer me. I teased him. Your Majesty. I bow to tease him, holding back my laughter, but he hit me on the head. Fuck off. I tried to get rid of the guard, but it was impossible since Alec wants me to have a guard by my side 24/7 day and night. Ash explains his situation, since I hadn't seen him for 2 weeks. We had only called or texted each other since he was in a hospital in New York by the Alpha King's orders. Is everything okay with you? You seemed pretty sad about the mate thing. I ask, hoping that he was happy. My parents suddenly got promotions. He has given me his black card so I could buy everything I want. I have the best life. Ash says, and he looks excited since his family was never well off. But I could see that he was hiding his pain. There was something going on, and he didn't want to tell me yet. I patted him on the shoulder to comfort him since he didn't need to pretend around me. Don't pretend around me, Ash. You're my best friend since childhood. We have seen each other's worst and best. Ash gives me a small smile, thank you, but I don't want to talk about it. I nodded, since I was going to force him, but I wanted him to know that he wasn't alone. We focused on our math books, but I glanced outside, seeing the cars drive away from the parking lot as the Alpha King had finally left. Hopefully, he didn't hurt my best friend because mates hurting each other is the worst pain of all. I had one last class for today, as the class would start in 15 minutes, so I had time to spare in the library. I was looking through fiction books, wanting to find something good to read, until the nausea hit me like a wave. I rushed to the bathrooms, locking myself in one of the stalls before puking my lunch out. After I was done, I went to the sink, wiping my mouth clean before taking a gum and chewing on it since I felt sick. I have felt this way for the past month, but I don't know what it could be. Maybe some incurable illness like Google says. I ignored those thoughts for the moment, stepping outside the bathroom as I had wasted 10 minutes. I had only 5 minutes left of my break. I made my way to the classroom on the first floor, but I halted in my steps when I saw Sophia putting something in my locker. She hadn't seen me yet as she closed my locker, making her way to the second floor. I scoffed, walking towards my locker as I found 900 grams of weed in my bag, which wasn't there before. She tried to expel me again. I could even go to jail for this. I took the bag out of my locker as I headed towards her locker. I tore the bag of weed open, throwing it all over her locker because when she opens it, all the weed will fall out. I closed her locker shut, as there were no security cameras in this part of the school. I made my way to class and I waited until the school bell rang. Another hour passed until the school bell rang and I rushed out of class towards her locker, but keeping my distance since I didn't want her to see me. I took out my phone since I was going to film the entire shit show. Sophia was talking with her group of friends as they made their way to her locker. The moment she opened her locker, all the 900 grams of weed fell out on the floor. Students stopped as they looked at her, and they all pulled their phone out, filming the crime scene. It didn't take her long to be escorted out by the police, since that much weed was illegal in school. The principal, who was her mother, ran after her while feeling humiliation from the students and the teachers. I didn't think she would have her job that much longer, since her daughter seemed to be a weed addict. I waited for the cops to pull out of school until I made my way towards Damien's car that was parked by the high school. I opened the door, sat down at the passenger seat and put the seat belt on. I saw the cops taking Sophia out of school. Did something happen? Damien asked once he started the car and drove off from the parking lot. Yeah, I just sent a bitch to hell. Elliot, 2 weeks had passed as it had started to snow on December 10th. Everything was covered in layers of white, giving off that Christmas feeling. Damien, I called out his name since it's 6 in the morning, but he suddenly got out of bed and left the room in the pack house. When I didn't get a response from my mate, I turned on the lamp on the nightstand and tried calling him again, but he didn't answer. Weird. I put on my sweatpants and took one of Damien's hoodies, which were way too big for me. I made my way out of the bedroom, as the entire hall was shaking to the music, since the wolves were throwing a party on the first floor for Damien and Kai, since they were officially our alpha and beta. Though Damien didn't want to party, instead he was busy fucking me on his bed and ordering takeout food. But suddenly, after a call, he got out of bed. I walked downstairs where the living room was packed with wolves of legal age partying. The music was blasting in my ears. It was so damn loud. The living room was dimly lit because there were LED lights of the colors blue and red which hung on the wall for the party. I pushed through the crowd until I made my way into the kitchen, where there was a huge chocolate cake with Damien's and Kai's names on. I didn't spot Damien, but I spotted Kai Lockhart with a girl around his hips. Is he fucking her on the kitchen counter? I turned away. I didn't want to see other people having sex, or else I would need to bleach my eyes. The last place I went was Damien's office. I gently opened the door and I found him there with a phone pressed against his ear. Once the phone call ended, Damien looked frustrated, like it was a situation he couldn't get out of. Was it about our parents? Last thing I heard about Anna was that Damien's father was divorcing her. He was even going to take full custody of the child since she isn't fit to be a mother. It's a brutal divorce. A battlefield since Anna doesn't want to divorce him, while Richard doesn't want to see her after he found out about the contract she signed with the Alpha King. Damien's father thinks very highly of mates. Once the man found out Damien and I were mates, he didn't mind it. I stepped inside Damien's office. What are you doing? I can't sleep without you. I walked over to him, wrapping my hands around his neck. I needed to take this unexpected call. Damien explained, throwing his phone on the couch. Is it something serious? I asked, biting into his lower lip. Damien wrapped his hands around my hips. Just pack business. There's nothing to worry about, Elliot. He pulled me in for a kiss as we made love on his desk, since we couldn't keep our hands off each other. Though something in my gut told me that call was serious, and I wished that I had listened to my intention. 2 weeks later, I was properly introduced to Damien's friends during Christmas Eve because my mate had booked a 5-star restaurant. It was on top of the skyscraper which the Reed family owned, basically Damien and his father. We had a private room of our own as we sat around a round table. The room was decorated in red and Christmas things, which made the energy much more enjoyable. Not only that, but we had the entire view of a large city which was 1 hour away from town. Damien introduced me to Nico, who I had already met. I got introduced to 3 girls who were the best of friends, along with another guy who was drunk on his ass. Then there was Kai. Most of Damien's friends were from his childhood. He trusted them a lot, and I could see how at ease he was with them. Damien, I never expected you to settle down. The drunk guy commented he was about to pass out. When did our little baby grow up to be this big? the guy added, almost shedding tears while I held back my laughter. I know, right? Kai joined in to tease the alpha. Damien used to wear diapers until he was 10 years old. I know it because I changed them myself. Kai pretends to weep for his friend. Damien ignores those two as he pulls my chair close to him and places an arm around my shoulder. At this point, I will need to change your diaper. You're going to piss yourself, Damien says to his drunk friend. A few seconds later, the drunk guy passes out and falls asleep with his head on the table. This happens all the time. Damien assured me since I had been taken by surprise. Damien says that you're 18, you're just a baby. One of the girls says, lifting a wine glass to her lips. I turned 18 2 months ago, so I have heard, but do you have any plans after high school? Any college plans? Or traveling the world? I want to travel to Europe since I want to see the old cities and towns. As for college, I don't have any plans now. I have studied enough for 12 years. I will just leave it as an open possibility in the future. I answered the girl, who seemed intrigued. It's so funny. The girl mumbles as she seemed to be tipsy. What is? Damien always had high expectations for the person he was going to marry. They had to be pretty, intelligent, have a college degree, come from a good family. Kai and I thought Damien had gone insane since he can't control how his mate is going to be. The girl laughs, recalling the past Damien when he was protecting himself from hurt. I turned towards Damien, placing a kiss on his cheek. I love you. I love you too. To our alpha and our future Luna. Kai and the girls toasted for us. A blush crept over my cheeks since I was going to be introduced as Damien's mate and the Luna of the Moonlight pack after the New Year's celebration. There was only another week left to go. Elliot, mature audience, my hands trembled as we were going to celebrate New Year's Eve with Damien's father at the house. We stepped out of the sports car, making our way to the front door as it was a weird feeling since I used to live here for 4 years, but now I'm with Damien. We entered the home which had the most gorgeous Christmas decorations in the living room since Richard loved holidays. I could smell the delicious turkey which was in the oven as I was starving to death. My hunger levels were up like crazy. I was craving many different things. Ah, you both are finally here. Richard came to us. He hugged both of us at the same time. Damien and I took off our coats and shoes before we entered the home. We made our way to the kitchen as Damien chatted with his father, mostly on light topics like about the weather or the world news. Before I took a seat, I looked in the mirror which hung outside the kitchen in this red knitted sweater. I almost looked pregnant. I laughed at the thought. I could be pregnant since we never used protection. But if I was pregnant, it wouldn't be a big deal. I would just feel happy. I take a seat by the kitchen table as Damien sits next to me while Richard takes out the turkey from the oven. We sit by the table, having a normal conversation since if we headed to deeper topics, all hell would break loose between the father and the son. After dinner, we gathered in the living room, but I headed upstairs to Damien's bedroom since he asked me to grab an old wine bottle he had hid. Suddenly the door rang when I was making my way towards his bedroom. I went back to the staircase as I had the entire view of the first floor and the living room. I saw Damien walking to the door and greeting the person on the other side. Mia, Damien says at the front door. Mia was wearing a red coat, as she seemed to be wearing a dress underneath it. She was carrying a bottle of champagne along with a red box. Mia hands him the box as Damien looks confused before he opens the thing, and he sees an ultrasound along with a pair of baby shoes. I'm pregnant with your child, Damien. It's a girl. Mia confessed out of nowhere. I wanted to laugh from a distance. Was she serious? Why is she always coming after Damien Reed? He must be so sick of her games. I called you on the 10th of December when you were appointed as the alpha, but you told me I was lying. Mia spat at him. She was angry. How many weeks are you? Damien asked, which shocked me. This meant that she might be pregnant with his child. I'm 6 months pregnant. It was the time when we had a quickie in your car. That was the only time we didn't use a condom. She explained, placing a hand on her belly. It must be fake. She didn't have a belly. She even went to the nurse and she wasn't pregnant, but she was slightly bloated. But the way Damien stared at her belly told me otherwise. He looked like he was pissed at himself for being careless with her. From what I heard, Mia was the longest friend with benefits Damien had since he slept with her for a few months. I guess he had gotten careless. I thought I would start choking because it felt like my lungs were collapsing on me. Another person was carrying my mate's child. The mating bond was a sacred and special thing, but it didn't feel that special anymore when my mate had knocked up another girl. I wanted it to be a lie, but I knew that Mia had always aimed for the position of Luna. She had even bragged how she had saved her virginity for Damian Reed. "You have slept with other guys during the months, are you serious? You are the only guy I slept with. You are the one who took my virginity." She had started to cry because of Damian's accusation. Richard was sitting on the couch. He didn't dare to butt into his son's personal business. She handed the ultrasound picture to him. "I can even do a DNA test. Hell, you can choose any doctor you want to do the DNA test." "This is your daughter." Mia grabbed his wrist, placing his hand on her stomach because wolves could hear and feel heartbeats of their pups. Only the parents can hear the heartbeat of the pups, nobody else, which means if Damian hears and feels the baby, it's his child. I can feel the faint heartbeat. Damian mumbles under his breath. His gaze softened in a split second. Damian's reaction broke something inside me that could never be repaired. He had always worn a haunted look on his face, but for the first time in a while he looked hopeful. His gaze softened as he kept his hand on her stomach. My heart was beating fast and hard. Tears were gushing from my eyes and I couldn't stop them. I covered my hand over my mouth. I sobbed into my palm because my dreams were ruined. My mate had knocked up another girl. What could I do? Should I sit on the sidelines and watch the love of my life raise another woman's child? I dragged myself from the stairs, making my way to the bathroom. I closed the door, headed for the drawer, and took out a small razor which was made from silver poison, as I would cut through my skin. "You're going to have a family." I whispered to myself, thinking about my mate. "I guess you don't need a mate anymore." My vision was blurry as I made my first deep cut on the wrist, wishing that this would end up killing me. Blood began to gush out of my wrist and fall on the floor. I made the second cut, the third cut, the fifth cut until my entire wrist was covered in blood that was pouring on the floor. I wanted to make the sixth cut, but my vision had grown blurry. I dropped the razor on the floor, feeling the world close in on me, and everything went dark in seconds. The last thing I remember was the cold floor, laying in a pool of my own blood, and feeling my life slowly slipping out of my grasp. I hope that death will be easier than living. Elliot, I woke up on a hospital bed because I had survived my suicide attempt. I was lying on a hospital bed, and Roman 4 inserted in my hand, but I wanted to pull the needle out of me. I didn't want to live whenever I thought about Damian and Mia. The door opened to the hospital room, and it was my best friend who stepped inside. His eyes were wide when he saw me awake. "You have been gone for the past 5 days. Ash mumbles, walking over to me and taking a seat. "What happened?" Ash asked. His voice was gentle since he didn't seem to have any idea. "Nothing," I answered, pulling the Roman 4 from my hand in a careless manner. I got out of the hospital bed. The heart monitor I had been connected to started to beep in a single line because I had pushed the monitor on the floor. "Where are you going?" he asked, standing from the chair like he didn't want me to leave the room. "I'm going to run away from here, since that's my specialty." I replied, taking off my hospital gown and putting on the clothes which were set aside for me on a table. "You're not allowed to leave. You're on suicide watch. Damian has people watching over you after he found you with your wrists slit," he explained, but I didn't listen. I had already put on my clothes, which were a pair of dark sweatpants and a gray hoodie. "You almost fucking died," he shouted. His voice was filled with pain and tears were falling from the corner of his eyes. "I almost lost my fucking best friend. I almost lost you and I wanted to die with you." He sobbed into his palms. He was broken. "The pack doctor thought there was no hope for you, but you made it out alive." "I don't want you to die. You are my best friend. How could I live without you?" Ash looked at me, his eyes red and swollen. "I wish that I had died." I mumbled, staring at my bandages that covered my entire forearm, but I covered the bandages with the sleeves of my hoodie. "Why do I have to live? Nobody at school likes me. I've been bullied every day ever since I started my first year of high school. My adopted mother doesn't like me. She has thrown me like I was a piece of garbage. The person who's supposed to be my mate is going to have a family with another person." I stared at the floor. My voice started to grow blurry because I was expressing my honest feelings to my best friend. My heart is breaking. I don't think I can repair my heart. I wiped tears off from my eyes, staring at the floor because I know that my best friend carried a devastated expression. Why didn't you tell me sooner? You could have died, and I wouldn't have known about your feelings. His voice breaks since he feels bad for me. That wouldn't change my life, but taking my own life would have changed something. I tell him, but my best friend only starts to cry harder. You are a good friend to me, Ash. However, you should get a better best friend because I'm not worthy of you. I will end up killing myself one day. I say with a small smile on my face. Why do you want to die? I know life is shit, but you were always so strong. What happened? He urged for the truth. Damien knocked up Mia. He's going to have a family that I want no part of at all. I confessed to him, feeling like shit. I didn't hear his reply before I made my way out of the hospital room. There were 2 pack members standing and watching the door to my room, but they didn't notice me sneaking out since I was good at running away. I hurried out of the hospital, and I covered my face with the hood of the hoodie or else somebody would recognize me since people had noticed how much time I spent with Damien. I had no idea where I should go, but I thought about getting food from the diner. I had a few bucks in the pockets of my sweatpants, so that was good. It took 10 minutes until I reached the cozy diner on the side of town. There were a few people in the diner, chatting and having a pleasant time. I entered the diner and nobody had recognized me yet. I looked through the menu on the wall, thinking deeply about what I should eat. I ended up ordering a hamburger with fries since it was cheap and simple. Young man, if you want a cup of coffee, you can take how much you like. The same goes with tea. The waitress passed by me, thinking I was a tourist. I thanked her, glancing at the newly brewed coffee and boiling water for tea that was on a table across the room. I didn't want coffee or tea right now, so I went and sat down in a booth after ordering a hamburger with fries. I kept my head low, but there are always people who will recognize you. Oh my God, you fucking psychopath. Sophia's voice startled me. She had just entered the diner and had caught the sight of me taking a seat in front of me. You will go to jail for what you did to me. You almost sent me to jail. She says, but I don't look at her, not out of fear but anger. Now that my older sister, Mia, has secured the position as the future Luna of the Moonlight Pack, it will be easy getting rid of you. She slurps on her milkshake that she had gotten from another diner. Mia is carrying the Alpha's child, and Damien Reed is happy about the news. They are even throwing the couple a celebration party on Saturday night. She looks at me, wanting a reaction. Did they already announce her pregnancy? I mumbled to myself, but Sophia took it as a question. Last night, they announced the news of her pregnancy. The entire pack is talking about the topic. Everybody is talking that my older sister is going to be the future Luna since she's carrying the Alpha's pup. She explained, sounding very pleased. I'm going to be related to werewolf royalty, she exclaimed excitedly. Suddenly, Sophia's demeanor changed. Also, I want to thank you for trying to take your own life. You did finally listen to my words. I can say that nobody in school missed you. Nobody talked about you at all. She laughed, leaving the booth, heading to the cashier to order food. She thinks I did it for her. How did she come to that conclusion, and how do people know about my suicide attempt? I couldn't contain my rage as I left the booth and headed towards the table with the tea kettle filled with boiling water. I hurried towards Sophia with the tea kettle in my hand, standing in front of her. Sophia? Yes. She turned to look at me, thinking it was somebody else who called her name. Oh, it's only you. Have you ever been to hell? I questioned her, holding tightly into the tea kettle. What? She scowled, glaring at me. This was the perfect moment to throw the tea kettle all over her face, not feeling an ounce of remorse for the girl. She screamed in utter agony while I smiled at her. I had never felt such joy in my life. I took the tea kettle with me as I ran out of the diner, running with all my might before the pack warriors would chase me for hurting the spoiled brat. Thankfully, nobody saw my face since I avoided eye contact with everyone. Elliot, after I got rid of the tea kettle, I made my way to my best friend's house since I had no other place to go. I needed a place to stay for the night since it was past midnight. You threw boiling water all over her face. Ash questioned since I had sneaked inside his room. Yes, hopefully she will never see again. I laughed at the idea while my friend patted me on the shoulder. Illy, he mumbled, do you want to leave town? Of course, but why do you want to leave town? I thought you loved being here. I want to leave town because I feel like this town has changed you. You used to be gentle and warm, but now you are growing more hateful," he explained in a soft voice. "I'm all in for hurting Sophia, but I'm afraid that you will hurt yourself again." He places his hand on top of mine, but I pull my hand away. "Where do you want to go? There are many places. But will the Alpha King allow it?" I mentioned, since I didn't want to stand in the way between him and his mate. Ash sadly laughed, since he seems to be sad for me. "Elliot, yes, you're pregnant," Ash announced after I had screwed up my life. "What? How do you even know?" I asked out of shock. "I found out from a nurse at the hospital after you had run away, but I bribed her to keep her mouth shut," Ash explained, fidgeting with his hands. "Holy shit, I was pregnant with Damien's baby. What should I do? I screwed up badly. I'm homeless, I don't have a job, I don't have a mate since I shut him out of my life. I named all the bad things in my life. I couldn't be a proper mother, my life was a mess. SHHHH, you're only 18, Elliot. You have your whole life in front of you." Ash says, placing a hand on top of mine, and this time I didn't pull away from him. He goes on to say, "We can get an apartment in town. I can help you since my mate is the Alpha King after all. We can finish high school before you give birth to the baby. Plus, nobody will find out since it's winter and all of us are wearing thick clothes." My best friend tries to reassure me. I feel hopeless because I'm 18 and pregnant. What will my life turn out to be like? "Elliot, a month has passed since I tried to take my own life when I didn't even know I was pregnant. It was the 31st of January. Snow was falling everywhere in town, but it made it easier to hide my baby belly since I needed to wear many layers of clothing. Ash and I had found a gorgeous 2-story house on the outskirt of town. We searched for an apartment until we decided that a house would be a better idea. I have no idea what the Alpha King thought when he saw an entire house was bought on his black card. We were decorating the home to our liking as we had almost finished decorating the place. My favorite thing was the fireplace in the living room, which created a cozy atmosphere. I took a break as I glanced at the ultrasound on the kitchen table. I was 4 months pregnant. I had gone to a pack doctor in the neighboring pack, which helped single omegas. The doctor confirmed that my baby was healthy, which eased all of my worries. I know that I shouldn't keep this secret from Damien, and I would not. I will tell him, but right now I want to gather my life, which is a mess, so when my baby comes, my child will be in a stable environment. That's why I set up weekly therapy sessions, since I needed to learn how to cope with my feelings so that I could be a good mother to my baby. I'm planning on telling him after Mia gives birth, since hopefully they can fall in love and live happily ever after. I scoffed at the thought. I was being petty when Damien hadn't even cheated on me, but I still felt wronged in a way. Mia was in her 7th month, only 2 more months to go before I tell him the truth, and that would be when I'm in my 6 months of pregnancy. Hopefully by then I have gathered my shit together, that I have a job, a more stable mentally, and saved up some money for my baby. "What are you thinking about?" Ash questioned as he walked out of his bedroom. His bedroom reminded me of a gym since he had suddenly started to work out, building the muscles on his body. "About how I'm going to tell Damien about the baby when I'm 6 months pregnant," I answered, going to the fridge and pouring myself a glass of juice. "Just know that I'm here for you," Ash mentions as he has been here for me through thick and thin. "I love you, you're my best friend forever," I say before drinking the glass of juice. I honestly felt bad that Ash had saved mine and Damien's relationship when it all just ended up in ruins. But at least he saved my baby's father. My child wouldn't be fatherless. "But there's something I need to tell you," Ash says, and by the sound of his voice, it's nothing good. "Spit it out." "Sophia's face is damaged. She planned to sue you, but Damien made her shut up, so her family can't sue you or else he will throw them away." "Haha, isn't Mia the new Luna of the pack?" I asked. Since I stayed out of town, I only went to school then went back home. "Hell no, Sophia wants her to be the Luna, but Damien doesn't allow it. Despite the fact that everybody in the pack knows that Mia is pregnant with his child, they even threw this grand celebration for her. I cut him short. "Thank you for telling me, but don't mention them." Ash zipped his mouth as he headed out of the house, since he was going to pick up Nova, who had been allowed into the mess. I headed towards the 2nd floor where the Mazer bedroom was located. This was mine and my baby's room, and it had an entire wall covered in windows. The view was of the driveway and the forest, which was covered in layers of white. I sat on the bed. laying a gentle hand on my baby belly because Ash's words had actually struck me. Whenever I hear something about Damien Reed from another person, I want to break apart and cry into the pillow because I miss him. Though, I don't want to get back with him because I'm not interested in living my entire life filled with baby mama drama. I have seen how Mia Nash is as a young woman, and I don't want anything to do with her nasty ass. If she had been a decent person. If she hadn't come from a crazy family with a sister who didn't bully me, pour blood all over me, and broke my leg, I would have stayed by Damien's side. But that's not the reality. Mia Nash and her family are dangerous, who brings out the worst parts of myself. The Nash family, Sophia's and Mia's father, wants his family to get a higher rank, and if Mia's child becomes the alpha, then the father will have achieved his goal. I'm not planning to have my baby in a harsh environment where they will need to prove themselves to everyone in the pack. I have seen how bloody these successions could get whenever the alpha's children from different omegas fight each other. I shuddered, wanting to shed tears for my unborn child since they would have a difficult road ahead, but I needed to stay strong for them. I needed to be a mother, not a child. Maybe I should move across the country once my baby is born. My child can keep in contact with Damien. I would never take away my child from their father, but he can come and visit us. I started to think deeper into the future, since I would have a baby to take care of in a few months. I only snapped out of my thought when I saw Ash pull up in the driveway with Nova. They were carrying grocery bags as we would have a movie night. At this moment, I'm thankful that I have friends with me, or else the road would have been lonely. Elliot, another month passed. It was a Friday morning when I had a biology class with Ash. Both of us had finished our exams, so we headed to the library to hang out for a while. We sat down on the couch in the corner out of people's sight as we looked through different books, as my best friend's bodyguard kept his distance. Until I placed a hand on my belly because my baby was kicking, which felt like butterflies in my stomach. "Is the baby kicking?" Ash questioned, sounding excited. "Yeah," I answered, grabbing his hand and putting his palm on my belly. "Holy shit," he almost yelled, but stopped himself since we were in the library. I smiled as it was less stressful going to school because Sophia's and Mia's mother, the principal, had been fired. Instead, there was a new principal arriving soon. "What do they feel like?" "The baby kicks," Ash asks, gently rubbing my baby belly. "They feel like butterflies," I answered as my best friend pulled his hand away from my belly. I looked at him, but he was wearing a frightful expression as he stared out the window. "What is it, Ash?" I glanced out the window, where Damien's sports car was standing in the parking lot. What is Damien doing here? I wanted to know since I hadn't seen his car these past weeks until now. Damien got out of the car along with Mia Nash. She was wearing a red velvet dress which showed off her curves. Her baby belly was huge as she placed a hand on her stomach. She was in her 8th month. Damien walked in first while Mia followed him. I remember now. They are going to introduce the new principal, who's Nova's stepmother. Ash answered, which made my heart drop to my feet. I need to go. I put on the oversized black hoodie, which managed to cover my bump for now. You can't leave now. Every student must be at the assembly hall since the alpha will give a speech. His words made me feel hopeless. Fine, I won't leave, but let's sit at the back. I don't want him to see me. I sighed, standing up from the couch. Ash and I headed towards the large assembly hall where many students were gathered. Most of them had taken the front seats. We sat down at the back and waited for the assembly to begin. My nerves were killing me. I hadn't seen Damien since I tried to take my own life. 10 minutes passed as all the students filled up the seats and the assembly finally began. Damien walked on the stage. He was dressed in a black 3-piece suit. He was handsome, but I could see the dark bags under his eyes and the lack of color on his face. He looked sick, Ash whispered, as I wasn't the only one who had noticed the changes. The speech began as Damien's words sent chills down my spine since he was my mate. He talked for about 5 minutes, thanking people for their donations, until he introduced the new principal. Nova's and Kai's stepmother walked up the stage while the students applauded. The woman seemed way different from the old principal, who was rude and cruel. I liked her, and I understood why Kai and Nova were good people, since they had a good stepmother in their lives. Finally, the assembly came to an end. I rushed out of the room since I didn't want Damien to see me. Not yet. I didn't see where I was going as I bumped shoulders with someone, and the person was Mia. the woman who was carrying my mate's child. Oh, it's you. The guy who ruined my sister's face. Mia gritted her teeth, her black hair was in loose curls. What evidence do you have? I mocked her, and thankfully my baby bump was very well hidden. Mia scowled. How dare you disrespect me? You used to be Damien's stepbrother before his father divorced your mother, but now you are nothing. Okay. Is my worth based on my parents and my ranks? You can be an alpha of the pack, but that doesn't automatically make you a good person. I told her, but she didn't seem to listen to my words. Who cares if you're good or bad? I don't care, just stay the fuck away from my family and Damien Reed. If I ever see you near him, I will pretend that you have pushed me down the stairs, trying to kill his child. She warns me, and she's more insane than me. Mia Nash, you're picking a fight with an 18-year-old. Don't you have something better to do? Like try to make Damien fall in love with you? I bet my money that he avoids you like you're the plague. He doesn't ask about you or the baby because he doesn't care enough to ask. I hit her right where it hurts. Tears gathered in Mia's eyes as she crossed her arms, trying to shield herself. At nights, Damien locks himself up in his office and drinks his pain away until he falls asleep on his desk. Whenever you go and try to comfort him, you can hear him say my name in his sleep. Elliot, I love you. Elliot, I miss you. Elliot, come back to me. Is that the words he's saying? I questioned, knowing I was right when Mia's eyes widen in shock. Mia, I really pity you. I always wondered what happens to omegas like you who get knocked up by the alpha, but then their mate shows up. What will you do when your mate shows up? Do you think your mate will accept a person who got themselves pregnant on purpose by another man? Please call me when your mate finds you. I will grab popcorn and laugh at you. I chuckled in her face as her face went red. Out of nowhere, Mia slapped herself and then fell on the floor. She started to cry, acting like I was the one who hit her. I hear footsteps rushing towards her, as the person is Damien Reed. He kneeled by her side, worrying about their baby. What happened? Is the baby okay? He asks, his voice filled with worry about the baby, but not for her. I hit her in the face since she pushed me against the locker and tried to choke me. I say, which shocks the shit out of Mia since she thought I would start to cry. I walk past them, stepping out of the school, feeling happy that I left Damien, or else that would be my everyday life. Yeah, I was definitely going to move away once I had enough money saved up for my baby. Damien, why the fuck did you hurt Elliot? I demanded an answer from Mia Nash, who was carrying my child, a baby girl. We were in my office after we had gotten back from school. She was sitting on the couch, her head was hanging low. He hurt me, he tried to punch my belly. She says through her tears, but I don't believe in her. I don't like Mia Nash and I regret sleeping with her since that had cost my mate, who I couldn't get into contact with. Elliot's phone was turned off. He didn't answer my calls or my texts. I couldn't get through him from our bond. He had thrown me aside. But at least he was alive. That day on New Year's Eve when my mate tried to kill himself, that pain was unbearable because I was prepared to die with him. I wanted to slit my own wrists and die with him. Mia, get out of my office and don't come unless I ask you to. I have already assigned somebody to take care of you and the baby. They will meet your needs because you won't get anything from me. I made it very clear to her, but she never respected my boundaries. It took two of us to make this child. She yelled on the top of her lungs, standing up from the couch. Yeah, and are you sleeping on the streets? No, you have the financial support from me. You and the child will be taken care of. Don't ask for anything else. I told her, but only more tears streamed down her cheeks. Why can't I be your Luna? Why can't you marry me? We can live happily together. I can be a good wife and meet your needs. I have already met one of your needs, which is to carry an heir. We're going to have a daughter next month, and you will fall in love with me once you see what a beautiful baby we have created. Her words were clawing on my skin. I hated her voice and her face. I walked over to Mia, my steps careful and slow, like hunting down a prey. I stopped in front of her, looming over her small frame. I wrapped one hand around her throat. I could crush her neck if I wanted to. Mia Nash, if your family hurts Elliot again, I will kill you after you give birth to my daughter. I have no affection for you or respect. I don't care what delusions you have about us, but you have to stop before I snap your neck in two. You mean nothing to me. Your only worth is that you're carrying my child, and you can fuck off from the pack since you wouldn't be a good mother. Her eyes went wide with fear since she knew I was serious about killing her. I let go of her throat and she hurried out of my office. At that moment, my dad walked inside. He was holding my little sister in his arms, Kate Reed. Anna had given birth to her. She had signed her rights over when my dad gave her a lot of money, but she had to stay away from us, and she was happy to do so. She only cared about the money. She didn't care about my little sister. The moment Kate was born, Anna almost threw the baby out of bed since she didn't want a child. My dad sits down on the couch as my little sister is asleep on his chest. Dad, yes, son. Can you take care of my daughter when she's born? I don't want her anywhere close to the Nash family. Mia is mentally unstable and insane. She's not fit to be a mother when all she talks about is becoming a Luna. My dad sighed, but he was carrying a soft expression in his eyes. Yes, I can take care of her. You don't need to ask me. She's my grandchild. Have you thought about names? He asked, since he was excited about having his first grandchild. He will spoil my daughter. I have a few names written down, but I think her name will be Willow. It was my mom's middle name, Alice Willow Reed. I say my entire mom's name out loud. She would have loved it, my dad sniffles, since the topic of my mom is difficult for him. I know, Dad. I stare at my little sister and I hope that my daughter gets along with her. They might even become best friends. Suddenly, a thought pops up in my mind. How was your relationship with your own dad, the late Alpha King? I know that he was in a similar situation as Alec Petrov. He didn't find his mate after he had gotten married and had a child. I questioned my dad. My grandpa was the late Alpha King who didn't find his mate and married my grandma to not lose his title, but then his mate showed up, Alec's mother. My dad went on to explain. It was a difficult relationship since he was a cold man until his mate showed up. He treated me with respect, but I could always feel the gap between my half-siblings. He loved them on another level, Alec, Mila, Nina. My half-siblings were his world. I felt bad to hear that, but I had also seen it with my own eyes whenever I came to visit my granddad. He always left my dad out. But I can say that having a child with your own mate is another experience. I cried more than your mom did when you were born. I went on my knees and thanked her for being in my life and loving me. He confessed, glancing at my little sister for a second. What are you saying? If Elliot ever comes back to you and you have a child with him, once the child is born, you can try to say to yourself that you love all your children equally, but you don't love them equally. Having a mate with your child cannot compare to anything else. Why are you telling me this, Dad? I went on to sit behind my desk, deep in thought about having a child with my mate. If I had a child with Elliot, I think my heart would burst. Just thinking about Elliot makes my heart burst. So that your children don't start fighting with each other, they should be good friends instead of getting jealous of one another. My dad says, and he's concerned since he doesn't want me to neglect my daughter. I won't neglect my daughter. I'm her dad and I know what it's like when you don't have a dad by your side, is what I wanted to say, but I held back. I didn't want to fight. What if your mate can't accept your daughter? Can you tell your mate to go to hell? My dad asked, not to piss me off, but he didn't want his grandchild to feel left behind. I didn't know what to say. What if your mate lays a hand on our daughter? Will you throw him into a cell? My dad continues on to ask. I don't know. I whisper, as I didn't know what I would do. I heard that Elliot threw boiling water at Sophia's face. How knows what he will do to your daughter? I cut him short by slamming my fist on my desk. Elliot was bullied for 3 years. He almost lost his leg because of Sophia and you didn't even help him, so show him some respect. I raised my voice, since I didn't like when people disrespected Elliot. My little sister woke up. She started to wail, and my dad made his way out of the office or else we would go into a fight. I leaned against the armchair, wondering how Elliot was doing, and if he was missing me, how much I was missing him. I glanced at the red box on my desk, which had a ring inside the box, an engagement ring for Elliot. I hoped that he would one day want to see the house, which is finished. I haven't stepped a foot inside the place since I had built it all for him, but he wasn't even by my side. Elliot, where are you? Damien, on the 31st of March was my daughter Willow Geyer Reed born into this world. Mia had given birth to her at dawn in the pack house. It was hectic. Everyone was nervous since my firstborn would come into the world. I looked at the closed door of Mia's bedroom since I didn't want to follow her inside. She wasn't my mate. She had only given birth to my daughter. You nervous, man? Kai stands beside me. He's more nervous than me. I'm nervous, but I know that my daughter will be born safely into this world. I say, staring at the door, wondering how I could be a dad to a little girl. I prayed that I could be a good dad to her. Willow Geyer Reed is born. The pack doctor announced as he opened the doors, carrying a newborn baby in his arms. The baby was wrapped in a clean white cloth. Her head was full of dark locks of hair, her face was flushed, and she was crying her heart's content. The moment she was placed in my arms, she stopped crying since she recognized my scent, her dad's scent. "Hey, Willow." I held her gently in my arms, feeling unconditional love for my daughter, as she already had me wrapped around her tiny fingers. I made my way inside Mia's bedroom. I closed the door behind me. Mia looked at me with hope in her eyes, hoping that I could come to love her now. "I still don't love you, I only love my daughter." I confessed, which made her cry. "My daughter is half of me, so you love some part of me." She says she would never stop wanting to become Luna. "Mia, I already have a Luna for the pack. I'm planning on getting them." I crushed any hopes and dreams she had in her delusional mind. "What are you saying? Next week, the Luna will be announced, and it's not you," I say since I had found Elliot. He was living with his best friend outside the town in a house. I tried to get closer, but his friend's bodyguard spotted me and told me to get out of the territory. I took a deep breath in, focusing on my daughter, who had opened her eyes. She was a carbon copy of me as a newborn baby. Mia cried since she wanted to be Luna. "How could you betray me? How can you do this to me? I'm the mother of your child." The baby started to cry since she was hungry. I handed Mia my daughter as she pulled out her breast and fed my child. "You will live here until my daughter gets a bit older. Then you will move into one of the houses around the pack house, or you can piss off and leave." I gave her one final warning, since I had been rather nice to her. This was the last time I warned Mia. If she didn't listen, she would deal with the severe consequences. "Elliot, you're healthy. Just make sure to get a lot of sleep." The pack doctor in the neighboring pack says after giving me the ultrasound pictures. "I will," I say, placing a hand on my huge baby bump since I was 6 months pregnant. We say goodbye before I leave the room and make my way down the hall, where Ash is waiting for me. "Here's the pictures of your godsons." I gave him the ultrasound photo since he was going to be the godfather of my children. "Godsons? You mean twins, 2 babies?" Ash mumbles, his eyes glued on the ultrasound photos. I'm a bit shocked as well, but it seemed that in my last appointment the other twin was hiding. I sighed, and I understood why my baby bump was huge. I couldn't hide it any longer. Ash pulled me into a hug. He was shedding a few tears since this was going to be his godsons. We pulled away, and our happy bubble was shattered when the alpha of the neighboring pack stepped inside the waiting room. The neighboring pack was called the Full Moon Pack. They had a great bond with the Moonlight Pack. Their alpha was nice, but that didn't mean he liked other wolves stepping into his territory. "You're not from here. Which pack are you from?" the alpha asks. He's a huge man with scars all over his face. He must be in his early 30s. "Alpha Dominic." Ash and I bowed our heads in union. Unlike Damian Reed, Alpha Dominic was more on the hefty side. Instead of 6 packs, he was a pretty huge guy, but not chubby, as muscular and thick would describe him better. "Damian Reed is your alpha." Dominic could easily spot imposters, even if he also ruled a large pack. "Yes, we are from the Moonlight Pack. I'm Elliot, Carey. I sought assistance from your good-hearted pack doctor who helps single omegas in need." I explained as Dominic's eyes lowered on my big baby bump. "State your case," Dominic ordered, and luckily we were alone in the waiting room. "My mate has knocked up another girl. It's dangerous for me to be with him, so I needed to leave." It is all that I explained to him. I didn't want to go into detail. "Do we have a problem here?" Ash's bodyguard shielded us. He was standing between us and the alpha of the Full Moon Pack. Dominic grew confused, but once he caught the sight of the symbol on the bodyguard's black suit, he understood that the guard worked for the Alpha King. If you see a symbol of a wolf's head with a crown on his head, it's the symbol of the Alpha King. "It's nothing. This alpha is just asking us questions since we stepped into his territory," Ash assured the bodyguard. "You're with the Alpha King, Alec Petrov. You must be somebody very important since this is his personal bodyguard." Dominic changed the topic. He seemed to personally know the Alpha King. "Do you know Alec?" I asked. It was good if we changed the topic. I didn't want him to find out about Damien and me. Yes, I worked for him for a few years and I went to war with him. He's a great friend of mine. The alpha explains, changing his expression from confusion to admiration. But what are you two doing here on such a joyful day for you pack? Alpha Dominic questions, but I don't understand what he meant. What do you mean? Elliot, a few days later, I stood behind the desk since I had gotten a job through the Full Moon Pack, since their town had opened a huge shopping center. I had worked for a month now, and I was working at a brand new clothing store after school and during the weekends. The pay was very good, and my coworkers were nice people. They didn't want me to move around too much since I was pregnant with twins. That's why I sat behind the cashier, taking the customers one by one, scanning their clothes or helping them with their membership card of the clothing store. I had worked for a few hours and my shift was soon over. "Hello," I say with a smile before looking at the customer, which was Mia Nash. Mia had placed baby clothes on the desk as I started to scan them one by one. I kept my head low as I wanted to get done with it already. I glanced behind her as Damien Reed was standing pushing a baby stroller around the store, and his dad, Richard Reed, was pushing his own baby stroller. Fuck, 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 you're working at a clothing store. Isn't that just cheap? Mia tried to get a reaction out of me, but it didn't work, since I didn't want to deal with crazy. That will be $225. I told her the amount of money while she glared a hole into my head, but she hadn't spotted my very noticeable baby bump. Mia paid with her credit card as I handed her the large bag with clothes. She snatched it from my hand aggressively. She stormed towards Damien and Richard, tears falling from her eyes. She was proving my reason for why I didn't want to be near Damien Reed or the pack house. Everyone thinks I would hurt their daughter, but I would never lay a hand on a child. I hate people who have abused children since I was abused, put in 10 different foster homes. I rolled my eyes at the sight of her and Damien, taking the next customer in line. "Hello," I say to a customer who happens to be Alpha Dominic. He places a few children's clothes, since he had 2 children at the age of 10 and 6 with his late mate, who passed away 3 years ago. "Do you like your new job?" The Alpha asked, which brought a genuine smile to my lips since I was forced to smile during my shift. "I can't thank you enough for giving me this job, or else I wouldn't be able to support my babies." I thanked the Alpha who had given me the job, since he owned the entire shopping mall. "Don't sweat it. My mate would have smacked in my head if I didn't help Omegas in need of help." The man's face softened at the mention of his late mate, who was a wonderful Omega, helping many people. "Who's that young woman?" The man turned to glance at Mia Nash, who was throwing a fit in the middle of the store. "She's the girl who got knocked up by my mate." Mia Nash and Damien Reed, along with their daughter, Willow Reed. I answered the Alpha. Sarcasm dripped from my voice. Alpha Dominic looked shocked because he didn't know that Damien was my mate. "Damien Reed is your mate?" "Yep, but he knocked up a crazy bitch and that's his problem. I don't want to put my children in an unstable environment." I told the Alpha, finishing scanning the clothes. Elliot, I had fallen asleep in the car on our way to the pack house, since I had barely gotten any sleep these past months. I woke up in a familiar environment, which was Damien's master bedroom in the pack house. I looked around and noticed that his door was locked. I couldn't get away even if I wanted to. I glanced at the windows as we were on the 3rd floor. I had no plans of jumping to death. I laid my head on the headboard, and I felt amazing since I finally got enough sleep because I had trouble falling asleep without my mate. My baby belly was huge as I pulled away the bed covers and pulled up my shirt from my bump, exposing my naked skin, which had slight stretch marks. "I love you," I softly rubbed my bump. A warm feeling grew inside of me whenever I thought about my babies. At that moment, Damien unlocked the door. He entered with a tray of breakfast in his hands since I had slept an entire night. That's how exhausted I had been. At the sight of me, Damien's gaze softened since I was bonding with our children. He placed the tray on the nightstand as he sat down beside me. He seemed so vulnerable while he stared at my baby bump. "I'm your dad." Damien lay a hand on my baby bump, gently rubbing my stomach, and my children kicked in his palm. My babies seem to slowly get comfortable with Damien's scent as they start to recognize their father. "Damien, I won't keep your children away from you, but I don't want anything to do with you any longer." I expressed my feelings, which he dismissed. "Damien, I say, placing my palms on his cheeks, forcing him to look at me. His eyes were red around the edges. He had dark circles under his eyes like he didn't sleep at all. I couldn't reject him since we had already marked each other. Damien grabbed me by the neck and pulled me in for a kiss. The kiss was forceful, like he didn't want to let go of me. I pushed him away, Damien. Elliot, you have no idea how much I missed you. You're the air that I'm fucking breathing. I was suffocating without you. I thought I would die. Damien trails kisses all over my jawline. Damien. I continue to repeat his name. You're carrying our children. Elliot, my children. I can't ever let go of you now. I thought I was going to die of happiness when I found out you were pregnant, and I was so relieved when our children had strong heartbeats. Damien lays his hand back on my swollen belly. I was cut off by him since he was afraid that my next words would be of rejection. You are mine. Damien takes off my shirt, throwing it on the floor as he sank his teeth into my shoulder where he had left his mark, which sent a euphoric feeling throughout my body. Damien. I moaned, my heart skipping a beat before he pulled away from my shoulder. He stood up from the bed. His gaze had darkened as his lips were slightly covered in my blood. Eat your breakfast and don't think about ever leaving me. Elliot, read you won't get far. Damien warned before he left the bedroom, locking me inside. Elliot, I tried searching for a phone inside the bedroom, but I couldn't find one. For the past few days, I had no contact with the outside world as Damien kept me locked up in his bedroom. He brought me food, books, and other things so that I wouldn't get bored. But he didn't allow me to go outside. I was for his eyes only. I recalled joking about alphas looking up their omegas, or when Kai Lockhart warned me about Damien Reed being possessive. I didn't listen since I thought Damien would forget about me since he had a daughter with Mia. But he didn't. He wanted the best of two worlds. I was sitting on the armchair, staring outside the window, which had the view of the entire PAX training ground. I tried to bang on the window, but nobody heard me. I heard the door open to the bedroom, which meant that Damien Reed was here for me. I turned around and found him sitting on the bed with a baby in his arms, his daughter, Willow Reed. Is he insane? This is my daughter, Willow. Damien introduced me to his beloved little girl who was 2 weeks old. I remembered the baby photos of Damien, and she looks exactly like him. I really love her. She means the world to me, so I hope that you can get along with her, Damien confesses, staring at his daughter with unconditional love. I remained silent, staring out the window since I didn't hate his daughter. She was a cute little baby, but I was afraid of what would happen when I let her in. I was afraid of what would happen when I allowed Damien Reed in. Take care of her for me. I left a baby bag on the floor. Damien says before he closes the door and leaves me with his daughter. Wait, what? I turned around, but he had already left the room and locked me inside with his daughter, who laid on the bed. She started to wail out loud on the baby nest. I couldn't ignore the baby. I didn't want her to get hurt or die. I dragged myself out of the chair, since it hurt to walk because of my heavy pregnancy weight and my swollen feet. I sat down on the bed, and to my luck, I had been reading these past weeks about babies, even watching a few videos, but nothing could prepare me for the real thing. Willow wailed her heart out even when I held her in my arms. She kicked her tiny hands and feet. I suddenly got an idea when I placed Willow close to my belly, since my babies and her shared the same father. Willow, don't cry. You will have to take care of 2 little brothers. I smiled as she slowly calmed down because even babies can smell the scent of their siblings. You're an alpha. You will need to show your brothers how to stand up for themselves. I told the little girl in my arms. She was adorable. I honestly wished that she had been my daughter and not Mia's daughter. Willow's head was close to my baby bump. She could feel and smell her 2 brothers who were in my belly, as they were oddly calm, probably asleep. The little girl ended up falling asleep in my arms as I placed her on the baby nest which Damien had left behind on the bed. Willow was sleeping, but she woke up again since she didn't like being alone. She needed human contact. I sat on the bed and I laid my head on the headboard as I took her in my arms until she fell asleep against my chest. We laid in bed until I ended up falling asleep with her. I only woke up when I felt the bed dip next to me. I opened my eyes as Damien had sat down on the bed. He was watching us in admiration since his daughter was sleeping on my chest. She has never slept like that on anyone's chest. She always throws a fit and cries. Damien explained. He ran a hand through his daughter's dark locks. She probably felt safe because of her baby brothers. At the mention of them, they had suddenly begun to kick, since they had been resting for the entire day. I winced as this worried Damien, who placed his hand on my belly, calming them down until their kicks became softer and lighter. "Thank you," I thanked him. He didn't say anything as he took his daughter out of my arms and headed out of the bedroom with a smile on his face. The following days, Damien left me with his daughter, Willow. Every day we bounded for hours until she grew to be comfortable around me, which I didn't mind. She was a lovely baby. I was sitting on the armchair as she was asleep on my chest when the door suddenly opened and the chaos broke out. Mia Nash had broken down the door and stormed inside the room. "Hand me my daughter." She was furious, since she didn't want her child to have a good relationship with me. "No, I can't hand her to you. You're clearly unstable." I argued as she tried to take Willow out of my hands, but her daughter began to cry. Mia managed to snatch her daughter from my arms as the little girl wailed. She didn't want to be in her mother's embrace. "Shut up," she yelled at her daughter, who cried louder. She wasn't even supporting her daughter's head. "Mia, snap out of it," I told her, since I didn't want Willow to get hurt. But suddenly, the woman took out a silver knife and stabbed me on the side of my stomach. "No, my babies." I fell on the floor as a pool of blood gathered around me, but I was worried about my sons since I couldn't feel their heartbeats anymore. Mia was about to stab me again, but Kai and Damien stormed inside the room. Kai took Willow away from her as Damien smacked her in the head as she passed out. "Elliot," Damien kneeled beside me, putting pressure on the wound on my stomach. "My babies. I can't lose them," I whispered, feeling blood trickle out of my lips. This was exactly the reason why I didn't want to return. I was afraid of dying and losing my babies. I didn't stay conscious for much longer as the darkness finally consumed me. The last thing I heard was Damien's pleading voice to stay awake, but I couldn't. I was dying in his arms. "Damien, mature audience, Elliot is in surgery. We don't know if he or the babies will make it," Kai announced through the phone. I stared at the blood on my shirt and pants. Elliot's blood that I tried to stop since he was stabbed by Mia Nash. She had dared to put her hands on the love of my life. I will fucking kill her. I was never going to forgive somebody for a crime like hers. I made my way down to the basement that had many doors, but I only needed the door at the end of the hallway. I entered a dark room at the end of the hall. I turned on the dim lights and I took in the room that consisted of 4 cement walls. The young woman herself, Mia Nash, was tied to a metal chair in the middle of the room. Her ankles were tied to the metal chair as well as her wrists. But she had struggled. I could see it because of her bruised wrists and purple ankles. She hadn't been touched or tortured yet. Instead, she had been locked inside the dark basement room for exactly 24 hours to break her mind, to tear her emotions into shreds. I put down the black box on the floor which I had been holding, and I sat down in front of her on the comfortable armchair. "Mia Nash, confess to your sins," I threatened her, but she spat at me. "You really want to die that much?" I questioned. "You're insane, Damien Reed. How can you kill the mother of your child?" She yelled, but nobody would hear her from the basement. "I only have one person who's the mother of my children, and that's not you. You could never measure up to Elliot Reed, my mate." I allowed a vile smile to appear on my face. "I should have killed you long ago. You almost killed my mate and my children." I leaned back in the chair, crossing my legs. "You're sick, Damien. And you're not, Mia. Your delusions should stop." I had enough of them. Mia began to laugh. "Haha, you're such a sick person. You keep going on and on about my delusions when in reality you promised to marry me. You told me how much you loved me, and you even gave me an engagement ring. Who cares if I told you the truth? The most important thing is that nobody believed you," I say in a low voice since I had enough of Mia Nash. Mia Nash was the perfect, ideal omega for me. She had a dark side just like me, but she's crazy. She was loyal to her bones. She was gorgeous. She had a bachelor's degree in nursing. She came from the Nash family, which once used to be a highly respected family. I was going to marry her after I was officially appointed as an alpha. I had given her an engagement ring 1 week before I found my mate. That's what ruined my plans, my mate, Elliot Carey. "You're a fucking... You tricked me. Trick you. I never tricked you. You crawled to me the moment I allowed you into my world." I darkly chuckled. "I found my mate and I ordered you to stay away. I gave you money, I gave you a car, I gave you a high job promotion at the hospital, but you still did not listen when I told you we were done. I listed all the things I had given her. You lied to me. I never lied to you since you were never in love with me. You only wanted the position of Luna. That was our deal. You never cared about me sleeping around with other girls, since you slept around with other men until I found my mate. Elliot, I woke up in a hospital bed. The room was quiet. The only sound was the steady beep of the heart monitor. I felt groggy, disoriented, but alive. The realization hit me like a wave. I hadn't died. What about my babies? I stared at the white ceiling, holding back the tears which threatened to fall until the pack doctor stepped inside. He looked shocked at seeing me awake. My babies. I stuttered since it was hard to speak. I could barely look at my stomach because if I lost my children, that would be the end of me. Your babies are fine. They mask their presence so when the knife went in your stomach, they didn't get hurt, and you got here in time to receive the antidote for silver poison, he explained, which was a relief to my heart. I laid a hand on my baby belly, and I was happy when my children suddenly began kicking around, trying to comfort me. You were rushed to the hospital where we put you in surgery. Luckily, you and your babies survived. You have been asleep for 3 days, the pack doctor says in a gentle voice. At that moment, Damien steps inside the hospital room. He walks over to me, placing an affectionate kiss on my lips. Voglio stares semper conti. Damien mumbles against my lips. He runs a hand through my blonde hair while he places his other hand on my baby bump. Damien, I say his name. I can't be with you. I don't want our children to die. I got stabbed this time. What will happen next time when he cut my sentence short with a forceful kiss? Damien pulled away. He stared at me with much emotion. Last night, the Nash family died. Their house was caught on fire and all of them burned to death. Mia died with them because she was hiding in her bedroom after stabbing you. What? They all died in the fire. Why? Lacere chi il mondo brucias per te. He speaks in Italian whenever he says something very affectionate. Translation, I let the world burn for you. What are you saying? I questioned, but he didn't answer. He only laid a hand on my cheek, caressing my cheek gently. Suddenly, Damien takes a tiny red box out of his pocket. He opens the box as there's a Gorgaus's heart-shaped diamond ring inside, which must have cost a fortune. Damien goes down on one knee. Elliot, Carey, the love of my life. I'm aware that you're terrified of getting hurt and abandoned by those you love. I have hurt you, a lot. If I could take back the pain I put you through, I would, but I vow to protect you from any harm and pain from now on. I vow to love you and care for you in sickness and health until death do us apart, if you let me do the honor to become your husband. I was shocked because I had woken up from my deathbed, and my mate was on one knee proposing to me. You're not proposing to me because I almost died. It was the first thing I said after his proposal. Elliot, I have had this ring in my pocket the day after I found out we were mates. I was planning on marrying you from the start because there's nobody who I would want to spend the rest of my life with than with you. He eases my worries with his words. Elliot Reed, I love the way your future full name sounds on my lips. What about people who won't accept us, those who were opposed to us? Those people who didn't want us to be together aren't here anymore. We're free to be together, and if anybody would have an issue with us, I would deal with them. Damien says, and he was still on his knee. Elliot, where are we going? I glanced at Damien, who was driving us through a safe and wealthy neighborhood. 3 weeks had passed since I got stabbed, and I got discharged from the hospital a few days ago since I had healed. Now my mate was driving me somewhere in town. His daughter was left with his father since Damien wanted to be with me alone. I stared at Damien, who didn't answer my question, but he kept a smile on his face. I turned to look at the road. The sunrise was creating pretty colors of orange and pink. I'm lost in my thoughts, wondering where Damien was taking me this early in the morning. Welcome home, Damien suddenly tells me once we slowly near a large house. It was a massive 2-story house that had large stone fences around the home. Damien took his phone and went to an app where he opened the driveway gates. They opened once he pushed a button on his phone and he drove inside the driveway, parking the car in front of the garage. We stepped in front of the huge house, and the modern design was captivating, with large windows that invited the sunlight to pour in. I walked up to the doorway. There was a lot of privacy because of the huge fences around the home. I opened the door and entering my brand new home. The air was fresh, tinged with the faint scent of paint and new wood. I was immediately drawn into the vastness of the place, where the gray walls create a calm and sophisticated atmosphere, perfectly blending with the modern interior. I explored further. I was impressed at how the living room flawlessly blended into the dining area, creating a perfect space for gatherings and cozy dinners. As promised by Damien, there was a fireplace in front of the large couch. I looked around in the brand new kitchen, with its high-quality kitchenware and modern design, and I could envision Damien cooking here, and our children running around with laughter. I headed out of the kitchen and I wandered through the rooms on the first floor and the second floor. There were 9 bedrooms and 9 bathrooms in total. Why is there so many bedrooms? I questioned my mate, who looked amused and satisfied with the home. It will feel empty now, but we will slowly fill each room. Damien says, leading me to the master bedroom, which has its own personal bathroom and a walk-in closet. You mean with children? I ask, walking towards the bathroom, where there's a jacuzzi, just like I wanted. I had planned it all out in advance for the sake of our kids. Our children will have their own space. They won't need to share a bedroom or a bathroom. Damien answers, leading me out of the bathroom. I counted the numbers in my head. Damien and I will take the master bedroom. The twins will have their own rooms once they have grown older. Damien's daughter, Willow, will have her own bedroom. 4 rooms will be taken, which means that there are 5 bedrooms left to fill. You're planning on having 5 more children with me. I gasped once I did the math. Damien didn't say anything. He just placed a kiss on top of my head as we left the master bedroom. I shook my head. I needed to focus on having my twins first before I thought of having more children. We descended the marble staircase which led us to the living room. From here I could see the huge backyard out the windows. The house was perfect, a little too big, but it already felt like home. Do you like it? Damien asks, a smile stretching across his face since he already knew my answer. I love it, I answered, looking up at the ceiling where there's a gorgeous chandelier. I explored for a while until I stepped into the kitchen and opened another door which led to the garage. I went inside as it was a large garage, well organized with tools hanging on the walls. But there was a brand new car inside the car, which I had never seen in my life. A black Range Rover was parked in the garage with a giant red bow on top of the car, like it was a gift. Damien, did you buy a car? I looked at him since he had been following me anywhere I went. I bought a car for you. He leaned against the door frame, crossing his arms as he studied my reactions. Holy shit, a car? I don't even know how to drive, I mumbled, gently walking around the car and checking the car's interior. I wanted to run around and explore every single thing, but I couldn't since I was heavily pregnant. I will teach you after the twins are born. He pulls me into his embrace after I get out of the car. I winced because the twins had begun to kick. They were hungry like me since I didn't eat enough. Are you hungry? I can hear the amusement in his voice since he told me to eat breakfast, but I had no appetite. Yeah, I had no appetite this morning, so I eat way too little. I explain, running a hand over my baby bump. It's good that I came prepared. I will grab some lunchboxes from the car. Damien says, walking out of the garage. I looked through the garage and the car while he was getting the food. The one thing caught my attention. There was a metallic door in the corner of the garage. I hadn't even noticed it the first time because it blended in with the garage. Since the door was made of metal, it blends flawlessly with the gray walls of the garage. You can't even see the door unless you stare long enough. I walked closer to the door the moment my hand was on the doorknob, and I was about to open it since the door was unlocked. Damien shut the door. I turned around in fear since I didn't even hear him coming behind me. Don't open that door. He states, keeping a firm hand on the door. Why? I asked, looking up at him since he was hovering over my smaller frame. It's my personal workspace and it's not finished yet. Damien places his hand on my lower back and leads me out of the garage. I glance once more at the door and deep down I felt like something was out of place, a hunch, some people may call it. One way or another, I was going to live here for a long time, which meant that one day I would find out what lays behind the door. Elliot, don't cry, Willow. Richard tried to calm down his grandchild, but she only cried harder in his arms, unlike baby Kate, who was asleep in her stroller inside my new home. SHHHH, Willow, SHH. Richard tried to gently sway her, but she squirmed in his arms. I think she wanted her mother because it had been over a month since Mia Nash passed away in the fire. I was sitting on the couch with a blanket over me, watching Richard trying to calm the baby in his arms. "Help me, Elliot." Richard pleaded. He was good with small children, but Willow was a different case. She was always crying. He handed the baby to me, hoping that she would stop crying. Instead, she wailed louder. It was a painful cry, and it sounded like I had tried to harm her. Damien suddenly stepped out of his home office. He walked towards me and took Willow into his own arms as she calmed down in an instant. She was in her father's arms. She ended up falling asleep in his arms as he sat down on the couch. He looked exhausted since he woke up many times during the night to take care of his daughter. I looked away from them. I stared outside the window at the backyard because I felt hopeless. "Are you okay?" Damien had tried asking for my well-being, but I managed to stand up from the couch and walked over to the twins' newly renovated bedroom. I sat down on a cozy armchair, which was perfect for breastfeeding, since all omegas lactate. I observed the room, which had 2 cribs. There were diapers stored and ready for them. There were also wardrobes filled with baby clothes. Everything was ready for my children's arrival. "I'm waiting for you, Callias and Killian." I ran a hand over my big baby bump. I had decided their names last night. Callias means beauty and Killian means warrior. Callias Reed and Killian Reed. Damien entered the bedroom while Willow slept on his chest. I like it. I know, I wanted their names to have some kind of meaning and to match. I keep my hands on my belly while Damien stares at me with affection. I hope they don't become enemies. I would be so sad. I whispered, not wanting my children to become enemies when they grow older. I never had a family, so I don't know how these things work. "You mean Willow and the twins?" he asked. He thought my words were directed for his daughter and the twins, but it wasn't. Why would they fight? "They are my children, so they should keep peace between one another." He kept on asking me. I meant between the twins. He cut my sentence short. "The child who will take over my position as the alpha will be the one who has earned the position." Damien explains. He was getting defensive about his daughter. The people in the pack wondered why Mia and Damien hadn't married when she was still alive. They had a daughter, who was an alpha. Now they were gossiping about me being Damien's mate. They are gossiping about my pregnancy and about which of Damien's children would take over after he retires in the future. That's why Damien is on the edge these past days, since many people have something to say about his children who are from different omegas. If Willow has earned the position, then she will take over. Damien raised his voice, which startled his daughter. She began to wail. He calmed her down as she fell asleep on her father's chest. "I'm sorry, Elliot. I shouldn't have raised my voice at you. It's just that many people in the pack are discussing this topic about the succession between my kids. This time I cut him off since he was getting on my nerves. He was the one who fucked around and got someone pregnant. What did he think people would say about him having kids from different omegas? Oh, yes, build your own harem of omegas and have as many kids as you want. Is that what he thought the pack would say? Damien, I want a written contract that our children will not be able to become the alphas of the Moonlight Pack. I don't want my children to die young. I say, standing up from the armchair. Only when they are of legal age can the contract be broken, since they can decide what they want to do with their lives. I told him, putting a hand on my lower back. Elliot, I looked him right in the eyes and said I really don't know what the moon goddess was thinking when she paired us up. I walked past him since I didn't want to see him now. My hormones were all over the place, and if somebody raised their voice at me, I would cry. My hand was on the doorknob to the master bedroom when Damien picked me up in a bridal style. It seemed that he had given his daughter to his father. I'm so sorry, Elliot. Damien carried me into our bedroom, locking the door behind him. But you're not a mistake in my life. You're the best thing that has ever happened to me. He laid me gently on the bed, connecting our lips into a passionate kiss as we ran our hands through each other's hair. He thought sex and lust could cover up the issues in our relationship, and it could for a brief moment, but it would never solve the problem. Even as Damien was fucking me on the bed, and I was clouded with lust, it wouldn't solve the root of our problems. Elliot, it was a gorgeous spring day. It was in the middle of May as everything had turned green, the trees, the grass as the sun shined brightly in the blue sky. After school ended for the day, my best friend and I were sitting in a cozy cafe in the middle of the town. It was weird going to school since everyone was staring at me, since they had found out about Damien being my mate. Thankfully, I had done all the important exams and assignments as graduation would come soon. It's hard. I don't know how I will manage to be a mother because Willow cries every night and Damien's barely hanging on. How will he handle the twins? I vented to my best friend who was sitting in front of me. Don't worry, I'm here for you if it gets hard. You can always move back to the house and I can help you with the babies, he says before slurping on his strawberry milkshake. A smile crossed my face. Thank you, Ash. I don't know what would have happened if you weren't in my life, but what about your mate, the Alpha King? I looked around since I didn't want anybody to hear us. Ash wears a grim expression, but he quickly masks his true feelings. He's in New York. That's nice. But how's your relationship? I lean against the cozy chair, wondering about my best friend's love life. The Alpha King, he got cut off when a waitress at the cafe turned on the TV. We looked at the flat TV screen which hung on the wall of the cafe. It was about the Alpha King, who's known in the human society as Alec Petrov, the multi-billionaire as he's considered to be among the elite. It was a gossip channel talking about him and his wife. There were photos of them in Central Park along with their baby. Ash looked away, slurping his strawberry milkshake as he shut his eyes, since he didn't seem to like hearing about his mate and his mate's wife having a great family time in the park. Let's go, he says, once he was done with his drink since he doesn't want to listen on the gossip channel. He helps me to stand up as we make our way out of the cafe. No bodyguard today. I looked behind us since there used to be a man in a black suit guarding my best friend. The Alpha King has sent him away. Ash almost sounded disappointed, like he thought his mate didn't care about him. Oh. I mumbled as we headed towards the forest trails, since it was the fastest way back to mine and Damien's house. When we were deeper into the trail, out of nowhere, somebody had hit me on the head with a baseball bat and proceeded to do the same to my best friend. It happened in a split second, as none of them had time to react. Both of us passed out on the ground, and we had no idea what our fate had in store for us. I don't know how many hours or days had passed when I woke up in a warehouse, tied to a chair as my mouth was duct-taped. I began to panic, struggling in the chair, which created a lot of noise inside the abandoned warehouse. It was hard to breathe, and I thought I would start to choke on my tears. I thought this would be the end for me and my children. Elliot, after a few more attempts of pushing, the first wail broke out in the hospital room. Killian Reed. The nurse declared that my son was born healthy, and it took a matter of seconds for my second baby to be born. And Callia's Reed. The nurse announced, and I was overjoyed that they made it out alive and well. The nurse cut the cords, checked on the twins' current health while cleaning the blood from their skin, then wrapping both of them in a separate clean piece of cloth to keep them warm. My chest was bare when the nurse placed Killian on my right and Callia's on my left as I cradled them in my embrace. I did not believe in God, higher powers, or a deity, but at that moment, I thanked somebody from above that my children were born healthy and well. It was all an Omega could ask for their children. I gave birth to identical healthy twins. What more could I ask for? The fact that my children were safe in my embrace was enough for me. I cried with my babies who were on my chest. Their faces were flushed and slightly swollen since they were only a few minutes old. You did well, Vita Mia, Damien says in a soft voice, holding my hand as support. The nurses leave us alone after checking that mine and my children's health is in good condition. I love you. Damien is standing beside the hospital bed. He has not taken his eyes off me after I had given birth to our babies. I love them so much, I whisper, feeling nothing but unconditional love. Callia's and Killian had calmed down as both of my children searched for my nipples until they found it and began to drink the milk as I chose to breastfeed them. I leaned my head against the pillow while Damien ran a hand through my blonde locks in order to comfort me. You're really the love of my life, Damien whispers, leaning forward and placing a peck on my lips. Not in front of the kids, honey. I teased, but he only smiled against my lips. He pulled away, taking a chair and sitting down beside me since he wasn't going to leave my side. Damien hadn't left my side throughout the birth. I think he was more afraid than me. Do you know anything about Ash's condition? I asked him about my best friend who got shot in the shoulder. Simon Nash had died on the spot after getting shot in the chest 2 times by Damien and the Alpha King. He has gotten out of surgery, but he's in a coma. We don't know when he will wake up. The doctors think he will wake up in a few months or weeks. Damien announced the bitter news. A few months. I muttered, staring at my children as their godfather was in a coma, but I would wait for him to wake up. He was my best friend. Yes, but the Alpha King is with him. Damien tried to reassure me that my best friend was in good hands. I nodded, but another question popped up in my mind. How did you find us? We were hours away in another town. Damien looked hesitant, like he didn't want me to know. Tell me, Damien, I asked, forcing the truth out of him. Inside the engagement ring, there's a tracker which tells me your whereabouts. Damien confessed. Elliot, 2 weeks had passed since my children were born. I gently placed Callias on the baby nest situated on the bed as he had fallen asleep in my arms. I did the same with his older brother, Killian. I watched them for a few moments, my heart filling with warmth and love, since they are my children. Killian was born in Alpha, while Callias was born in Omega, but I loved my children just the same. I managed to drag myself out of the master bedroom since I didn't want to leave my babies, but I needed to make dinner for me and Damien. But if Damien knew what I was thinking at this moment, he'd convince me to be with our children instead of cooking food. I shook those thoughts away as I went to the kitchen counter, preparing the ingredients, since I would make a beef stew for me and Damien. I was cutting the carrots and onions when the door suddenly opened in the kitchen, the door which led to the garage. I will head to the grocery store. Do you want anything? Damien asked as he walked out of the garage and stepped into the kitchen. You can buy some chocolate for me. I smile as he plants a kiss on my cheek and leaves the house, since he was going to the grocery store. I try to focus on my task, but every so often I look at the kitchen door which leads to the garage. What was Damien doing there for an hour? The curiosity got the best of me since I really wanted to bathe Dora the Explorer. I walked out of the kitchen and made my way into the garage. I looked around the garage, but everything was the same. Nothing was out of place. This meant that Damien was in his secret office inside the garage. I walked towards the door, which is almost invisible to the naked eye. It was the same door that Damien didn't want me to enter when I came here the first time. I put my hand on the doorknob, and I feel surprised since the door isn't locked. I open the door and enter the room. What the fuck? I whispered under my breath. I was looking at a large whiteboard which covered an entire wall of the room. The whiteboard was filled with pictures of me. The pictures were leading back to last year when Damien had found out I was his mate. There were at least over 200 photos taken of me. It was like somebody had stalked me for months. There were many photos of me when I was pregnant and living at Ash's house. Did Damien already know that I was pregnant? What the hell? I glanced at the corner where there was a desk along with multiple computer screens hanging on the walls. Those screens showed the entire house, the CCTV footage, which I had no idea about. I walked towards the screens which hung on the walls, watching the CCTV footage of the master bedroom, where my babies were asleep. I sighed, not understanding what was going on until I looked at the desk, which had piles of documents. I looked through them as the documents were about Damien's inheritance, since he seemed to have everything planned out in case he passed away when he was young. He had left $20,000,000 and 2 large properties in Italy for his daughter, Willow, though. He had left most of his wealth to me and our twins. He has planned everything, I muttered, checking through the other documents. Those documents were trust funds for his children, which they would receive when they are the age of 21. At least Callias and Killian were secured for life. They were really going to live with a silver spoon in their mouths until the day they died. I sat down on the armchair, putting away the documents in a neat pile. I looked through the drawers of the desk, and I found my passport, which I thought I had lost. I had even found documents that state me and Damien are legally married. We're married. I never recall signing any documents. My hands trembled as I looked at the CCTV footage, and my babies were still sleeping in their baby nests. I don't know what it was inside of me that begged to look through the last drawer. So that's what I did. I looked through his last drawer until I found a hidden medical file which had almost slipped my hands. I began to read through the medical file on Damien Reed. A psychopathy diagnosis of some sort? He has a severe form of antisocial personality disorder. I looked through the medical file with trembling hands, since this was a surprise to me. There was everything written down from Damien's childhood to adulthood. The violent acts he committed as a child, and his lack of empathy towards others. The file went deep into his diagnosis because he had gone to therapy since he was 8 years old. Damien Reed pushed a guy from the rooftop. He made his friend fail tests so that his friend couldn't get into college. He put drugs in his father's drink so that the man would hallucinate. What the fuck? Damien made his own father hallucinate. I wanted to read more, but I glanced at the CCTV camera and I caught sight of the driveway as Damien's car pulled up, and he began to take the groceries out of the car. I immediately put everything back the way it was, not leaving a trail in my wake. I rushed out of the secret room, closing the door behind myself. I knew that I wouldn't make it to the kitchen, so I ran to my brand new car. At that moment, the door opened and Damien walked inside the garage. He seemed to be actively searching for me. I pretended to admire my new car, not looking at him or else I would break down. "What are you doing here?" Damien asks in a low voice. I take a deep breath in, preparing myself to look in his eyes. The moment I gazed into his eyes, I felt like a deer who had been caught in the headlights. "What are you doing in here?" He questions me in an authoritative voice. I want you to teach me how to drive." I made up a lie on the spot. "You promised that you would teach me once the kids were born." I walked over to him, wrapping my trembling hands around his neck. "I will teach you, but first let's make the stew for dinner." Damien pulls away from me, placing a hand on my lower back and leading me into the kitchen. "Let's do that." I force a smile on my face as he leads me to the kitchen counter. All I could think about was his diagnosis and the fact that he had stalked me for months. We were even married without my knowledge. Was there something else I didn't know about Damien Reed? "Elliot Damien, have you seen my passport?" I questioned him during dinner. It was late in the evening when Damien and I finished making the beef stew. Damien had poured himself a glass of wine while I drank apple juice. Damien stopped eating. He slowly looked up at me with an intense gaze. "Are you planning on going somewhere, Elliot?" I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself down. "And no, I'm not planning on going anywhere. My passport wasn't inside my nightstand, so I just wondered if you have seen it." "It's probably somewhere in the house. We have recently moved our stuff into the house, so it must have gotten lost somewhere," Damien says in a casual tone, returning to eating the food on his plate. "Can you help me look for my passport?" I asked, since I wanted to see how much he would lie to me. "Why? We are not going anywhere now. Our kids are way too young to travel." Damien takes a bite of the beef, but the way he stares at me is a warning and a threat. "Are you afraid?" I whispered under my breath, but he could still hear my voice. Damien put the fork and the knife on the side. He took a napkin and wiped his lips clean since he had been taught good table manners from a young age. "Elliot." He says my name in a harsh voice. "Is there something you want to tell me?" I keep contact with him, my gaze not wavering for a second. "What would you do if I left you?" My voice was barely above a whisper since I was stepping into dangerous territory. Damien was gazing into my eyes like I was his prey. He looked at me like he wanted to devour me. He wanted to bend me over the dinner table and fuck me into an oblivion. "Watch what you say, Elliot," Damien warned me. "Why?" "Are you afraid that I will crawl to another alpha?" I was walking on unstable ground, since I didn't know what Damien would do to me if I pushed him further. Damien was possessive over me, and it wasn't a delusion in my mind. I had seen the things in his secret room. The guy had signed a marriage certificate without my knowledge. Damien stood up from his seat, walking in my direction. He stopped once he reached my side. I clenched into the fork I was holding onto since I had no idea what to expect from him. Damien laid his hand on my chin, holding it up so that our eyes met. "If you ever dare to crawl to another alpha, I would tie the alpha to a chair and fuck you right in front of him. So good that you wouldn't even realize he was there." His words sent shivers through my body, especially when his fingers slowly and sensually traced my cheekbones. "Should I invite an alpha to dinner? Maybe Alpha Dominic, who seems to have caught an interest in you," he mutters in distaste for the other alpha. "Alpha Dominic. There's no way that he likes me, and we have barely had a proper conversation." But that didn't stop Damien from making assumptions, since he was a possessive person. So what would happen if Alpha Dominic was here? I pushed him a little further. "I would do the most ungodly things to you. I would bend you over the table and fuck you right in front of Alpha Dominic to show him how much you're mine." Is that what you want? By this point, I had dropped my fork from my hand, dazed by his words. Damien leaned towards my lips just as I thought he was about to kiss me. He leaned towards my ear instead and whispered harshly, "Don't test my patience, Elliot Reed." His words were like venom to me, and I wanted to test how far his patience would go. "What if I want to test your patience?" I asked, a sly smirk appearing on my face, but Damien darkly chuckled, enjoying the challenge. "Then you're welcome to be fucked raw in front of another alphabet, mark my words. Elliot, I would put a chain around your neck while I fuck you raw because you are mine." He confessed, tracing his fingers over collarbones for a few months. Never forget my words. And with that, Damien hurried out of the kitchen, heading to his home office since he was busy with work. Once he left the kitchen, my inner panic kicked in because images of me with a chain around my neck flowed in my mind. I held my hand around my neck where Damien had touched just moments ago. It scared me, even terrified me, but the most terrifying thing was I would have loved him to do that to me, maybe even begged for him. Am I fucked up? "Elliot, do you know who I called to take care of the kids?" Kai Lockhart. Dominic's kids weren't awful. They were pretty chill as they were sitting around the dining table. I had given them paper and pens, so they were busy drawing. On the other hand, I was busy making dinner for the kids and Kai Lockhart, since that was the only reason he agreed to help me babysit. How is it possible for a tiny human being to shit so much? Kai entered the kitchen with Callias in his arms as he had changed his diaper. Killian was sleeping in the bassinet which was in the corner of the kitchen. He had been fed, then he fell asleep, since that's what my babies did most of the time, they slept. "Are you bad-mouthing my son, Kai?" I teased while making the chicken soup. "Of course not. His Royal Highness Callias Reed is treated with the utmost respect," Kai jokes, bowing his head. "Are we related to those babies? Our dad has the same last name as that baby." The girl, who was about 10 years old, pointed at Callias. I was caught off guard by the comment, since I hadn't even thought about it. Hell, I only found out Damien's grandmother was alive. Now she might be dead. "You are related to both the babies, Callias and Killian Reed." "You are." I tried to quickly figure out how they were related. I glanced at Kai, who had nothing but pity for me. He could see that I had no idea about this. Damien and Dominic's children were cousins. What were our kids? "You are first cousins once removed." Kai answered the question since he saw I was struggling. "Oh, so we are cousins? I have more small cousins." The 8-year-old boy looked up with delight in his eyes. He seemed excited. "We have 5 other cousins, but all of them are big, except Willow. She is the smallest and cutest cousin," the young girl says before returning to her drawing. I force a smile on my face and focus on making the chicken soup. Kai put Callias next to his twin brother in the bassinet, then he went over to me. "Damien doesn't mean any harm," Kai whispers, since he doesn't want Dominic's children to hear us. "I don't know what you are talking about," I muttered, cutting the large carrots, then throwing them in the pot. "Damien wants what's best for you and your kids. He comes to defend his alpha since they are childhood friends." "Kai, I know I sound like a whiny bitch, but nobody has come and visited the twins. Richard hasn't even made a phone call to check in on them. I don't care if nobody checks on me. But my kids are another matter. I want them to have a family." I whisper through gritted teeth. I glanced behind me. Dominic's kids were still drawing, not listening in on our private conversation. Why is Damien keeping the twins from meeting his family? Unless they are a bunch of serial killers, I question. Kai grows silent for a few moments. He's only watching me as I'm making the chicken soup. "Damien." Kai clears his throat. "He wants what's best for you. Some secrets are best to be buried." I cut harder into the celery. The sharp knife echoed in the kitchen, which startled Kai Lockhart. "Mia Nash isn't dead," he confesses out of nowhere. My hand stopped midair, holding tightly into the knife. "What did you just say?" "Mia is alive. She's living with Damien's grandmother, but..." I looked at Kai. The guilt was visible in his eyes since he seemed to be keeping the secret. "Come on, Mia has been dead for 2 months. Everybody held a funeral for her in the town's church." I chuckled lightly, not believing his words yet. "She's alive, Elliot. She's locked up in Damien's grandmother's mansion because she is paralyzed from the waist down. She is sitting in a wheelchair." Kai explained, his eyes begging me to believe me. "Kids." I turned to look at Dominic's children, who were sitting at the dining table and were lost in their own little worlds. "Have you seen a young woman in a wheelchair at your grandmother's place?" I asked in a gentle voice, not trying to raise any suspicion. It was the young boy who went on to say, "Oh, you mean Aunt Mia? She's living with grandmother because she's raising little Willow. Aunt Mia is so kind to us, she always gives us a lollipop whenever we visit. Really?" My voice was barely above a whisper since I could barely make any words. "Yep. Aunt Mia joins every family gathering that we have twice a month, but she doesn't stay too long since she has problems with her legs." This time, the young girl mentions it with an excited voice. "You have family gatherings twice a month." I mumbled out of shock. "We have family gatherings on Saturdays. We will have a family gathering this weekend." The young girl comments she seemed to be waiting for the weekend. I turned away from them, unintentionally holding onto the sharp edges of the knife with my hand, which drew blood from my palm. "Elliot." Kai immediately took the sharp knife away from my hand as blood streamed from my palm and onto the floor. Tears blurred my vision since I felt betrayed. I thought Mia, the young woman who tried to kill me, was dead, but she was alive. Did Damien's family think I would kill her? Did Damien think I would kill her? "Elliot." Kai whispers my name as he wraps a clean towel over my palm, putting pressure on the wound. Blood. The kids yell in shock as my children wake up from their naps. I yank my hand away from Kai, heading towards the bassinet, picking up the twins and holding them gently in my embrace. "My wound would heal since I'm a wolf. You and the kids can sleep in the spare rooms. And the soup is done." I told him before heading out of the kitchen and went to the master bedroom, locking the door behind myself. I calmed down my children as they fell asleep in my arms. I placed them in their baby nests before I tended to my wound. I walked inside the bathroom, sitting down on the bathroom while taking a clean white cloth and putting pressure on my palm as tears didn't stop flowing from my eyes. I heard Kai banging on the door for a few moments, but he stopped when I didn't open the door, since I needed to be alone or else I didn't know what I would do. I sank on the floor, my body racked with sobs as I struggled to comprehend the situation. I didn't know what was happening anymore. But I didn't think I could stay with Damien anymore. I felt like our bond was slowly fading away, but that wasn't possible. I wondered the same thing I did a year ago. What was the moon goddess thinking? It must have been an error pairing us together. Maybe Damien and Mia were supposed to be mates, but I came between them. At this point, I didn't see a happy ending for us. Damien, it was dark in the bedroom. Only the dim lights outside shined into the master bedroom, yet I could see him clearly since he was my entire world. But Elliot Reed looked heartbroken even in the dark. He was sleeping in our bed. Our kids were sleeping beside him while the bed covers were on the floor. He must be cold. I sat down on the edge of the bed, pulling the bed covers over him, tucking him in bed since I wanted him to feel comfortable. I stared at him for minutes. I couldn't stop, since I couldn't believe he was mine to kiss, mine to love, mine to fuck. "You have no idea the things I would do for you, Elliot." I caressed his cheek. His skin was soft, and it sent chills throughout my body. Elliot suddenly rubbed his sleepy eyes before looking at me. He didn't jump out of bed from shock since there was a person on his bed because he knew it was me. He knew I would always be watching over him. "Damien." He says my name in such a gentle way that could warm my heart, which is devoid of any emotions. "When did you get back?" he asked, his voice sleepy. 20 minutes ago, I replied. I had been in the hospital for hours since my grandmother passed out due to low blood pressure. The silence grew between us, but I didn't mind the silence because it allowed me to observe Elliot's delicate features, his soft cheeks or his sharp jawline. But my mate had many things on his heart which he needed to let out. "Why don't you let the twins see your family? Are they not that important?" His voice was barely above a whisper. He didn't sit up on the bed. Instead, he continued to lay down. His head was on the pillow as I could see the dry tear stains on the fabric. "I can understand if you toss me aside, but I won't allow anybody to toss my kids." I cut him off with a kiss, devouring his lips like it was the sweetest thing in the world. I forced myself to pull away since he was such an addiction to me. "Elliot, don't ever think so low of yourself. You're worth more than that. Trust me." Elliot widened his eyes, since he didn't expect those words from me, but his expression quickly changed. "How can I trust you when you're keeping things from me?" He made a valid statement since I was hiding things from him. "I know about your diagnosis." He confessed the painful truth which I had tried to avoid. The world could see me as cruel and evil. but not him. I never wanted Elliot to find out, since he would look differently at me. I found your medical file. I read almost everything because I saw the secret room in the garage. I was stunned for a few moments, since it was the last thing I expected him to say. You saw everything? I muttered in disbelief. He had seen the darkest part of me. I saw everything. He nodded slowly and carefully, like he was observing my reactions. You have my passport, he adds, and we are married. I looked away from him, since he had seen things I didn't want him to see. Have you called the wedding planner? It was all I said because I had nothing else to say. I couldn't tell him I felt guilty or ashamed, since I never felt those emotions. I didn't feel guilty for hiding things from him. Damien, we can't ignore the issues in our relationship, or else the entire relationship will fall apart. What do you want me to do? I would do anything for you. If you asked for the world, I would give you the world. My words were nothing but the truth. I want you to stop hiding things from me. I had no idea that we were married, that you somehow signed a marriage certificate without me. He sounds like his trust has been broken. Elliot, I don't know if I can stop hiding things from you. There are some secrets that are dangerous. I know that Mia Nash is alive. He blurted out, sitting up on the bed. My mate keeps on shocking me, but I could guess that Kai told him the truth. Mia Nash is alive because my father wants her to be alive. I told him. Wait, what? Elliot sounded surprised. Are you for real? Why does your father want her to be alive? Willow isn't my child. Are you fucking kidding me? You heard your daughter's heartbeat from Mia's belly. What about the DNA test? Elliot raised his voice since he was utterly shocked. Did you know that siblings can hear their other siblings' heartbeats? If you were pregnant again and our kids put their hands on your belly, they could hear their siblings' heartbeat. Wait, Elliot was trying to put the pieces together in his mind. You mean that? My dad has fathered a child with Mia Nash. Willow is my little sister, not my daughter. Elliot gasped, but he quickly clasped his hands over his mouth since he didn't want to wake the kids. My dad cheated on Anna. Mia was waiting for me outside my dad's house. I didn't come home, but she waited for me until she met my dad, who was drunk, and they slept together. The next morning, my dad kicked her out and threatened her to never come back or else he would kill her. I tell him the entire story, or rather the story my dad told me about the incident. 2 weeks ago, I disowned my dad and my entire family. That's why you haven't met my family. They all knew about Willow's origins, but they didn't tell me for months. The mere thought of my family made me sick. The only reason why I went to the hospital was to force my grandma to sign a will. It was a will which states that I would inherit the Reed family business, or at least get the CEO position. What about the last wills that I found in your secret room? You wanted to give your daughter, your sister, a house in Italy. Elliot looked shocked since he had thought Willow was my daughter. I have removed those last wills. You and our kids will get everything that I own. I could see that Elliot was relieved by my words. In some way, I also felt relieved that Willow wasn't my daughter, since I didn't want to have a child with Mia Nash. If we had known the truth, we would have been married by now. I sighed, clenching my jaw since we had wasted many months on the baby mama drama. Elliot wrapped his arms around me as he cradled my lap, making himself comfortable. He looked happy, relieved. I'm happy that I won't have to deal with Mia Nash for the rest of my life. I can't stand her after she tried to kill me and our babies. Elliot buried himself in my neck, breathing in my scent. But why is she in a wheelchair? Elliot looked up at me, pressing his forehead against my own. I cleared my throat. I pushed her down the stairs after finding out the truth about Willow, because she had caused you too much angst and pain. She needed to face punishment. Your grandmother has 3 grandchildren from Richard. Elliot noted, but he didn't comment on the fact that I pushed Mia down the stairs, and he didn't seem to be freaked out about it. We can truly be a family now. You, me, and our kids. I leaned forwards, pulling him into a touching kiss. I would never allow anybody to hurt my family again. I had been a fool once. I wasn't going to be a fool twice. Elliot, I woke up to the soft rays of sunlight filtering through the thin curtains. My eyes ached since I had cried last night before Damien told me the truth, which still felt surreal. Who could have known that Willow wasn't his daughter, not me? I allowed a smile to appear on my face as the familiar scent of vanilla and sandalwood filled the air. Mine and Damien's scent lingered in the master bedroom. I glanced on my right side as Damien was sleeping next to me. He was sleeping naked, wearing only a pair of black briefs which showed the outline of his dick and his strong thighs which could crush someone's skull. I laid a hand on his chest, slowly caressing him since it felt too good to be true. We wouldn't need to deal with Mia Nash for the rest of our lives. If your hand slips any lower, I will not be able to hold myself back from fucking you, Elliot. He murmured, his voice husky and deep. His eyes were shut, yet they held much dominance. I blushed as I looked to my right side, where my babies were awake in their baby nests. My babies were staring at each other like they were aliens from another planet. Good morning, I say in a soft voice as my babies follow the sound of my voice and look up at me. A small smile appears on their faces. I thought about my injured hand, which was now healed. I shouldn't have hurt myself, even if it was unintentionally. I had my babies to think about. I couldn't be selfish since I was their entire world. Thankfully, the wound wasn't deep. It was just a scratch which I had healed overnight since wolves heal fast. I stayed in the bed with my babies, feeding them while watching the sunrise through the window, since the curtains were thin. Damien woke up. He stared at me and our children. I couldn't believe this guy was a killer because of the warmth in his eyes whenever he looked at us. Go to sleep. You literally returned in the middle of the night. You must be tired. I frowned since he looked exhausted. I want to take you out on a proper date. We can have a picnic outside since it's going to be warm. He suggested, but there was something in his tone. Ha, you probably end up fucking me, I blurted out without any shame. Doesn't that sound like a nice date? Our kids will be sleeping in their strollers and I know a nice place where there will be nobody around to see us. He wore a sly grin on his face. Sounds good. I winked at him. The morning seemed to be bright, but that didn't last long. I had heard from Kai that you hurt your hand. Damien muttered, taking my hand in his. I wasn't in my right mind when I found out Mia Nash was alive. I accidentally gripped the knife a little too hard, but I'm healed now. I tried to reassure him, but how could I? I had tried to harm myself. Damien grew concerned. What kind of thoughts did you have in that moment? Be honest with me. I thought you were protecting her. I thought your whole family was protecting her from me. I felt devastated because I'm your mate, not her. I thought that the moon goddess had made a mistake of pairing us together, and that thought made me want to die. My words got cut off short when Damien pulled me into a kiss, but the kiss was gentle, almost like a summer breeze. Don't ever do that again. It was the first thing he said to me after pulling away. Elliot, you don't know how much I love you. You can't fathom the unconditional love that I have for you. Damien said, his voice filled with vulnerability, something I had never heard before. All I felt was relief when his big arms pulled me into his embrace along with our babies who were busy eating. I love you too, Damien, I whispered against his shoulder. This couldn't be a better morning. The sun was clear with a few clouds in the blue sky, and the weather was warm. It was a perfect day for a picnic. We had arrived at our destination, to my mate's secret hideout. Damien was not kidding. The place was breathtaking since it had a huge lake where we could go and swim, but we would save the swim for another day. My mate had laid out a large blanket on the grass as we laid down on the soft material. I laid next to him as we stared at the blue sky. We were cloud gazing, something I never thought we would do together. Our twins were sleeping in the double strollers, which were next to the blanket. That cloud looks like the Earth. I pointed at one large cloud that reminded me of Earth. You could ask me to take over the world, and I would. Damien teased, and I couldn't hold back my laughter. I wiped the joyful tears from my eyes. My, aren't you a charmer? I can't help myself whenever I'm around you. You're too tempting. He wrapped his arms around me, pulling me into his chest. We laid on the blanket in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's presence without needing to talk. I honestly loved it. Aren't you afraid of me? Damien blurted out. He was being weirdly vulnerable today. He's not dying, is he? Why would I? I asked. My head was against his chest as I followed the natural rhythm of his heartbeat. Damien pulled away from me as he changed our positions. He was sitting on the blanket while I cradled his lap and wrapped my hands around his neck. This is his favorite position. I'm not your ideal husband. I'm possessive. I'm selfish. And I want to own every single part of you until there's nothing on my mind but thoughts of you. He began to trail kisses on the side of my neck. I knew what he meant. He had hidden things from me, and many people in my case would have run away from a man like Damien Reed, but I love him. You're fucking mine, Elliot Reed. I wish I could imprint those words on my soul. Damien muttered against my skin, which sent heat throughout my body. You have already imprinted those words on your soul. We're mates. We're meant to be together even in our next life because our souls are connected throughout time and space. I bit into my lower lip, holding back a moan. Damien had found the mark on my shoulder where he had left behind. He sank his teeth into our bond as electricity rushed through our bodies. We should have a wedding. I want a wedding with many roses and orchestra. I managed to say, but a moan escaped my lips because of the euphoric feeling. Damien looked up at me. His lips had slight blood on them since he bit pretty hard, but not to the point of seriously injuring me. Suddenly, he uttered against my lips, I want to marry you in the middle of the night when the sky is filled with stars. It has to be under a full moon, just the two of us. I would love that. I answered, tears of joy welled in my eyes. There was no place I'd rather be than in his arms for the rest of the day. Elliot, 1 week later, I went grocery shopping since Damien had given me his black card and told me to buy anything I wanted. I pushed the double strollers through Walmart. My babies were sleeping peacefully since I had changed their diapers and fed them before we went out. I went to the drink section, searching for iced tea since that was my favorite drink. I managed to find it, but I couldn't reach the drink. To my luck, there was somebody who grabbed the iced tea for me. Thank you, I thanked the person as I put the iced tea in my cart. Look who we have here, Elliot Carey, the person who perished from the clothing store. Alpha Dominic teased me because after I had resigned from my job, I disappeared like a ghost. Alpha Dominic, what brings you to this town? I allowed a small smile on my face. My family lives here, so my kids visited their grandparents over the weekend. The man gazed further away from us. There was a boy and a girl who were picking out sodas while their father wore a disapproving look. What did I say about sodas? He says to his kids, yet his voice wears a gentle tone. Only on Saturdays. The girl mumbles in disappointment, putting the large bottle of soda back on the shelf. On the other hand, the boy takes a Coke, opens the small bottle and drinks it to spite his father, then he pours the drink on the floor. I gasped when the boy rushed away from his father. Alpha Dominic tried to be composed before he went after his kids, who were little rascals. I gently laughed before I headed towards the cashier since I had taken everything I needed. I was waiting in line since there was a long line on a Monday afternoon. I was minding my own goddamn business when I heard two people gossip behind my back. Hey, isn't that Alpha Damien's mate? I heard two people whispering behind me in line. I glanced out of the corner of my eyes, and it was two girls who were gossiping about me. They were girls who had been in the same class as me. What a lovely coincidence. It must be him. His name is Elliot Carey, right? He was in our class. One of them whispered in a hushed tone. Yeah, he used to be Damien's stepbrother before their parents got divorced last year. Don't you think it's weird? It's definitely weird, especially when Damien already has a child with another woman, Sophia's older sister, who tragically passed away. They didn't stop gossiping about me as the gossip took a darker turn. I think Elliot Carey killed Mia Nash since everyone knows how mates can be possessive of one another. I feel so bad for her. I wanted to snap at them, but I had Damien's reputation to think about. If I started yelling and hitting them in the grocery store, Damien would face the consequences of my actions. Instead, a different idea popped up in my mind. I turned around to get their attention. Hey, children. What? The girls said in unison as they didn't care that I had heard the gossip. Elliot, 1 week later, I was sitting in another cafe in town. This cafe was built by Damien Reed for me. He said it was an early wedding gift. He built the place because he wanted me to feel safe and comfortable. This cafe was really secure with CCTV cameras everywhere and 2 bodyguards stationed at the entrance. I took a sip of the strawberry milkshake, trying to hide the blush on my face at the thought of Damien Reed. The guy would do anything for me. I was thinking about my mate when my phone vibrated in my pocket. I picked up the phone because Sam Asher Callahan was calling me, my fucking best friend who was in a coma. Elliot, I heard my best friend's voice over the phone. Ash, when did you wake up? I asked since I had no idea my best friend was awake as he was currently in a hospital in New York. It was the Alpha King's orders, since he wanted his mate to get the best treatment and care. I woke up a month ago. He whispered in shame since he didn't tell me for a month, but he had his reasons. Are you okay? Is your wound healed? I asked in a gentle voice, since I didn't want my best friend to feel ashamed. It was my fault that he had almost died in the first place. Everything's fine. I didn't tell you since I needed to get my shit together, but my life is still a mess. He groaned over the phone because he didn't get his shit together even after a month. Anyways, do you have any tea for me? Any juicy gossip? I'm dying over here of boredom since I'm locked in this hospital. He whined like a little bitch. Well, Mia Nash is alive, I blurted out, knowing he would love the gossip. Holy shit. He yelled over the phone, sounding excited, and I can imagine him jumping around the bed. There's more. Mia Nash had slept with Damien's father. Willow isn't Damien's daughter, it's his sister. I muttered, and I think I heard my best friend passing out for a few moments. All this happened while I was in a coma. Why is life so unfair? Why ye? He didn't stop whining since he loved gossip. The town didn't know about it. They only found out last night when Damien made an official announcement. I told him about the announcement my mate had made to the pack about Mia and Willow. Honestly, I felt bad for Willow. She was just a baby who got very unlucky. And my babies are born, Callias and Killian. I announce with a smile on my face as my babies are with Damien at the pack house. That's it. I'm taking the first flight back to town. I heard my best friend putting on his clothes and packing a suitcase over the phone. Wait, I got cut off since he hung up the phone. I sighed, putting the phone on the wooden coffee table. Ash has really missed a lot, but I felt my eyes widening as I saw Mia walking on the sidewalk, or rather Damien's dad was pushing her wheelchair while she held their daughter in her arms. They are walking in broad daylight after Damien's announcement. No wonder they are getting the stares from people. It's weird that Mia doesn't do anything take revenge against Damien and his family for murdering her entire family. Elliot, does the Alpha King know you are here? I asked my best friend, who was dying from happiness since he got to meet his godchildren. Why should I tell him? Ash looked at me. He was laying on the bed with Killian and Callias by his side. You came here without telling the Alpha King. Won't he start a war? I sat down on the edge of the bed. Nope, he's a busy man. He has been in Switzerland for the past 3 weeks with his wife and baby. I simply don't want to think about him. Ash's mood grew sour since his mate was a married man. But don't worry, I'm not completely irresponsible. I left the Alpha King a message about my whereabouts since I don't want him to start a war for nothing. He mentioned it to calm my nerves. We sat in comfortable silence as my best friend was playing with my children. Killian and Callias were lying on the bed while my best friend handed them their baby toys. Suddenly, he whined, I can't believe I missed high school graduation and the birth of your children. I missed so many things. At least I won't miss your wedding. Who told you about my wedding? I was surprised since only 3 people knew about the wedding. Me, Damien, and Kai. I was going to tell my best friend about my wedding, but I wanted him to settle down since he had arrived an hour ago. Kai Lockhart. We exchanged numbers since our besties are getting married, he says in an excited voice. I was going to tell you, I just wanted you to settle down. You only arrived 55 minutes ago, I explained. I didn't want him to think that I didn't want him to come to my wedding. He was my only friend, my family. Don't sweat it, Kai and I will be there. Ash winked, knowing there was no way to stop him. He would be at my wedding one way or another. So, where's the groom? Ash looked around the master bedroom until his gaze landed on the photo of me and Damien which hung on the wall. At the pack house. He's in a meeting with another pack who came across the country to make a peace treaty. I answered, feeling a warm feeling grown within me at the thought of my mate. Shouldn't you be there with him? Aren't you the Luna of the pack? He asked out of curiosity. I'm the Luna, but I will take on the official duties in a few months. Right now, I want to focus on my kids and my mate. I want to spend time with them. I told him about the agreement between me and Damien. I was going to raise our kids before I slowly take over the Luna duties one by one. I'm happy everything turned out good for you, if only the Alpha King. The words trailed from his lips. If only the Alpha King, what? I asked, since I thought the Alpha King was a possessive man. Ash suddenly sat next to me, and he revealed his shoulder where there was a tooth mark. Holy fuck. Did the Alpha King mark you? I could barely utter a word. Ash was 18 while the Alpha King was in his 30s. Should I call the cops? Yep, his voice was small. What? I slammed a hand over my mouth, waiting for him to continue. He marked me in front of his wife because she what? Nothing. I don't want to talk about it now. He sighed, laying down on the bed next to my kids. What are you going to do now? Are you planning on staying here? I changed the topic since he looked sad. I'm going to settle down in the house outside of town, the one we were supposed to live in. He responded with a smile on his face, but it was fake and empty. The Alpha King must have done something to him, but I can't ask what happened, or else my best friend would shut me out for being pushy. Ash wouldn't admit this, but he's sad about his mate, the fact that his mate has a family. I remember when I thought Damien and Mia were expecting a baby, I was about to lose my mind because of the mate bond. A mate bond isn't your average relationship. It's a gift from the moon goddess who reunites two people for an eternity, to love and behold. I'm glad to have you back, Ash. Just know that you're always welcome in my home. I patted him on the shoulder since he was a sucker for physical affection. Thanks, he muttered under his breath, turning his head away from me. We were two best friends who had gone through hell and back, but we would always stand by each other's side. Nothing could change that. You promised to make me your groomsman even if your wedding is small. Ash asked. He looked like he was wiping tears from his eyes. I promise. Good, or else I won't come to your wedding. He joked, but that only made me smile. I wouldn't have it any other way. Ash was going to be my groomsman. Elliot, I was going to officially marry Damien Reed once the two large doors opened in front of me. It was in the middle of the night. The full moon was large and bright in the night sky. I was standing inside a gorgeous Catholic church because of Damien's Italian roots. His mother was a Catholic woman. She believed in the moon goddess and God at the same time. For the past 10 minutes, I was standing alone, staring at a painting inside the church of an angel on a cloud. But I wasn't alone for long. Elliot, Ash shouted as he ran towards me with open arms. Kai trailed after him. He was wearing a black suit for the wedding. He was also pushing the double strollers as my babies were asleep. Ash pulled me in for a hug as he began to shed a few tears. Why, you're getting married. I'm so happy for you. He sniffled, giving me one last pat on the shoulder before taking a napkin and wiping the tears from his eyes. Tears welled in my eyes at my best friend's comforting words. Good luck, Kai said with a happy smile on his face. Thank you, I whispered, wiping my own tears. They went inside the church, since they were going to sit in the front row and cheer for us along with my children. I stood alone for a few moments, waiting for the wedding music to begin and play. I tried to calm my nerves, but many thoughts raced through my mind. How would the future be for me and Damien? Then I remember his words to take things minute by minute. A chill ran down my spine when the orchestra started to play the wedding music, and the two doors opened in front of me. I could feel the pounding of my heart, each beat a reminder of the fact that I was going to get married to Damien Reed. I walked along the white carpet towards the altar, my gaze traveling all over the place, to the white roses, to the full moon outside the gorgeous Catholic church. I glanced at the left corner because Damien had hired a private photographer who was taking our wedding photos so one day we could show our kids. Across the room, Damien Reed stood at the altar. He was looking devastatingly handsome in his black tailored suit. His dark hair was combed back as his hooded hazel eyes were intense and intimidating. In 2 minutes, I will become Mr. Reed, Damien's husband. I was happy to get married to a man whom I love. Every glance, every shared moment had only deepened my feelings for him. Kai and Ash were sitting in the front row. My best friend was holding Killian while Kai was holding Kalia's. Ash gave me a thumbs up while tears ran down his cheeks. I was lucky to have a best friend like him. I finally reached the altar, where a priest and Damien were standing. I stood in front of Damien, staring into his intense eyes, which held much affection for me. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of Elliot Carey and Damien Reed. The priest began, his voice a monotonous drone that barely registered in my mind. My eyes and ears were only for my mate. Do you, Elliot Carey, take Damien Reed to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part? I do, I whispered, my voice cracking under the weight of joy because I got to marry my mate, my soulmate. The priest turned to Damien, repeating the vows. Do you, Damien Reed, take Elliot Carey to be your lawfully wedded husband, To have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, till death do you part. I do. My mate's response was steady and firm because he wanted me. He wanted all of me. The exchange of the golden rings followed. It was an heirloom from Damien Mother's family. She had given 2 golden rings to him before she passed away. As Damien slid the ring onto my finger, I felt a tear slip down my cheek, a silent testament to happiness. "You may now kiss your bride," the priest announced to my mate. Damien wore a smug grin on his face since he loved to kiss me, trail kisses all over my body in the middle of the night. He leaned in, his lips brushed against mine. "I love you, Elliot Reed." Tears welled in my eyes from joy. "I love you way more, Damien Reed." It was a long and a passionate kiss which I had imagined. Damien wouldn't leave me unsatisfied. Kai and Ash erupted in applause, their cheers a deafening roar in my ears because my entire world was in front of me and his name was Damien Reed along with our children. Damien 1 year later. Elliot Reed sounded fucking perfect coming from my lips. Nothing was better in life than to marry the love of my life. Sometimes I woke up in the middle of the night and admired him in his sleep. I was grateful that I could say the words, "He is mine and mine alone." He's a wonderful mate who I would never trade for the world. If somebody tried to force me, I would end up ending the world because Elliot is my entire world. "Damien, are the BBQ ribs done?" Elliot stepped outside onto the patio with a bowl of salad in his hand. I snapped out of my thoughts as he walked over to me because I was standing in front of the grill. I was barbecuing the ribs since we had guests over to our home. It was my friends, along with Alpha Dominic and his kids. Thankfully, my uncle Dominic understood to not make a move on my mate or else I would break his fucking fingers. I glanced on the other side of the patio where the guests were sitting on the table and chatting. They were drinking beer or cider for the special occasion because it was Elliot's baby shower. Golden and white balloons were tied to the house, gifts were placed on a table, and we played games all afternoon. Now it was time for dinner. "Are you done with the ribs?" Elliot asked in a gentle voice. He looked exhausted since he was on his feet all day. I took my time to pull him in for a hug and lay my hand on his swollen belly. We were expecting another baby boy in 2 weeks, and we were happy since we were by each other's side. "The ribs are done. I will bring them to the table. You need to go and take a seat. You look exhausted. Vita mia." I ran a hand over his belly because our child was kicking. Elliot nodded as I took the salad bowl from him. He went and took a seat at the head of the table since it was his day. He was amazing for carrying our child. I took the BBQ ribs from the grill and placed them in the middle of the table. It would be enough to feed a whole village. I placed the salad close to Elliot since he loved his vegetables. I took my seat between Callias and Killian, who were sitting in their high chairs. Their faces were a mess since they were experimenting with baby food little by little. I would wait until they were done before I would wipe their faces clean, or else they would make a mess again. "Your ribs are the best." Kai patted me on the shoulder while he put a lot of BBQ ribs on his plate. I felt like I was feeding an army whenever it came to the beta of my pack. I put a few ribs on my mate's plate and grilled corn since it was his favorite. I put the plate in front of him as he smiled at me in appreciation. "You have the best husband, Elliot. Damien can make you BBQ ribs and grilled corn every day if you ask him. You're lucky." Kai mumbled, his mouth full of food, and he reminded me of a stray dog. I began to dig in after my mate had begun to eat the food, but I wondered where my uncle and his kids were since they were not at the table. Did they go home already? At that moment, Dominic's kids ran out of the house and into the patio, taking seats on the table. They didn't hesitate to dig into the food and drinking the sodas, which their dad was very much against. Thank you all for reading Pregnant by the Alpha. I have never written a wolf book before, so it was fun, a little bit weird but fun. I'm here to announce that I'm going to write Ash's book because he's an interesting character. I really want to write a book about him and the Alpha King. I have so many ideas for their book. I hope you will read the book and enjoy it. Mulda enus male alam muldanus letter 1D17, and the book is out. It's called The Alpha King's Forbidden Mate. You can find it when you click on my Wattpad account. I just want to mention that Elliot and Ash are very different characters, so don't expect the book The Alpha King's Forbidden Mate to be like Pregnant by the Alpha. I'd also like to mention that this will be a 3-book series called Pregnant by the Alphas, the first book. The second book is The Alpha King's Forbidden Mate, and the third book will be about Kai Lockhart. I hope you all will enjoy the books, and I will see you soon.